Greetings from the Indian Association for Science Fiction Studies. I'm Anugraha and I welcome you all to the 22nd annual 7th International Science Fiction Online Conference of April 2023. I'm immensely happy to welcome you all for this paper presentation session. It's my privilege to welcome the chairpersons Dr. Sudhir Matpati, Dr. Ahilya Barure, Dr. Amandeep Singh, Dr. Sadullah Khan, Dr. Santosh GK, and Dr. Vasudeva SP. Also, I have the pleasure in welcoming the paper presenters, self authored story readers, namely Divya Shikar, Mansa G, Mariam bin Salim, Meenal R. Khale, Dr. Sonali Santosh Kadam, Amandeep Singh, Karunagaran B, Wendy Van Camp, Lavanya S, Shivam Sharma, Reema Kumari, Dr. Jayashri, Dr. Madhu Chitravu, and Harish Goile. On this occasion, I welcome the distinguished guest speakers, moderators, panelists, registered participants, live members, media persons, and members of the organizing committee. Over to the presentations. Thank you all.
Hello, everybody. My name is Divya and I am a research scholar at Department of English, GLA University. I am working under Dr. Kasturi Sinhare, and the paper that today I am about to present is entitled as Identity Crisis in Clones: A Distinct Possibility or a Far-Fetched Idea in Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. So, Kazuo Ishiguro is a Nobel laureate of 2017. Initially, he began his career as a songwriter by he started writing jazz and beatnik music. Later, he moved on to after getting a course in creative writing from University of East Anglia. He moved on towards writing fiction. Basically, he started writing novels, short stories, and screenplays, and he's still an active author today. And he identifies himself as an international author. The reason is that he has a Japanese ancestry, but at the early age of 5, he moved on to Britain, and there he started. He started growing up, and he was exposed to a different culture, which was quite distinct from Japan, and that is the reason he doesn't exactly identify to one particular culture of any one particular nationality, but rather he writes for an international audience and he identifies himself as an international author. And while writing, there are some special features that he has shown during his authorship. When he started writing, his narrators were more or less they were these plots they were woven around Japanese people, these Japanese narrators we had, Japanese stories we had. But later on, he moved on to writing about more European characters. And now, at present, he has even experimented with making narrators who are not even humans. In his latest works of science fiction, we will see that in his latest work, Clara and the Sun, there is a narrator who is an AI based robot type thing. And in the work that we are going to talk about today, there in Never Let Me Go, we have an author, we have a narrator who is a clone. So Never Let Me Go was published in 2005 by Favor and Fave, and it is set um, in a parallel world in the 1990s in England. And we'll see that this novel is, on surface level, it appears to be a campus novel which has a sinister bend. So initially we'll see that the stories will be proceeding in a normal way, which as it happens in a campus novel. But later we will find out that the people who we are dealing with, they are not humans, but rather they are clones. And this fact comes to them as a shock, that because it shakes their basic beliefs. They were assuming themselves to be normal human beings, and they realize that they are not human beings, but rather they are clones who are developed for donating organs. So as they do not have a family background or something, they do not have parents, they do not have family, so it poses questions on their identity and origin, because even the origin method, how these clones are developed, that is not being taught in the novel. It is nowhere present in the work that how these particular clones are being developed. And the reason why, just we have a reason, the reason why they are being developed is that they can donate organs to normal human beings who need them, and it is basically just working as a profit working mechanism, and that is the reason it also complements capitalism. The characters that we see here, they are struggling to define their identity. The reason is that they are preconditioned from a young age to prevent the establishment of a strong sense of identity, because they do not have any family background or any particular uh, proper authorized channel through which reveals the origin of these, and it is a state sanctioned cloning following with a no relaxation policy, that all the clones has to meet the same end, that is they have to die by donating their vital organs. And these clones, as they do not know that from where do they come from, they keep throughout their life, they keep searching for people upon whom they are modeled, like if they are clones, who are the real human beings from whom they have been made. And that is the reason. But at the end, what we see, ultimately these characters give up, they are not able to find out the real person upon whom they are modeled. So in this particular science fiction work, our author Kazuo Ishiguro does not just write a story, but he comments on societal attitudes towards identity and individuality by depicting the clones as human beings with human-like emotions and intellectual capabilities. And Ishiguro also uses clone's plight to critique the way in which societal attitudes can limit individual opportunities for self-discovery and self-expression. The value of personal agency and the desire of self-determination also plays a very important role in the determination and the moving forward of plot, because these characters, they are not ready to give up. At initial stage we'll see that they are not ready to give up this urge to find out that who are the real people upon whom they are modeled, or let they want to have a normal life, so they keep struggling for that. They have self determination, they want to express themselves, they want to do self discovery, but the opportunities are very limited and they are not allowed to do that. And in Ishiguro's critique of societal attitudes, we see that it also shows how society, as a society, individuality and personal autonomy is devalued. So through the portrayal of clone, what Ishiguro is trying to show is he's trying to show the marginalized. He it is there is this type of interpretation, though he never talks about this, but we can see such representations as representation of marginalized classes of society, because again these humans and clones, they have a relationship between them which holds very similar to the classical Marxian model of division of society, which is based upon between bourgeoisie and proletariat division. And it is also the commodification of human body with little attention to emotional aspects of existence. The reason is that organs are just being taken out as if human body is some sort of machine which can be assembled and disassembled without taking emotions into any consideration. So, and societal norms, society often values individuals based on their usefulness rather than their inherent worth. And this also stands true for clones, which is not just for which used to be just for human beings. And these clones, just as the marginalized classes of society, the resources are being cut off from them, so that when they do not get equal resources, they will never be able to resist whatever being is given to them, whatever the destiny is being given to them, they would not be able to resist. So here not just in this work, but in most of the works of Ishiguro, we'll see that memory always plays a very important role in the construction of narratives. How does how does it happen in this particular works? The protagonist Kathy, see, reflects backs to her school days to make a sense of belonging. Again, the same Kathy, she recalls her excellent career as a carer to redeem some of the years of her life. The term carer is being used here for the people who take care of these organ donors, and they are also clones as Kathy is. And later, when their caring period is over, they also become donors and they start donating organs. So this is the early stage of being donor. And it is also done by following a selective memory for chances of maximizing survival. And some personal memories and the collective memories that we have, they function in varied ways in construction of events in this play, sorry, in this novel. So when we are talking so much about organ harvesting, it is impossible to take these things into account without looking at the morality which is involved in organ harvesting. So there is the first question which comes to my mind while talking about organ harvesting here, that is it permissible to treat conscious beings such as clones as sites of organ harvesting? It also shows the darker side of healthcare sector, how other organisms are being sacrificed for life of other human beings. And it might also remind readers of the classic trolley problem of philosophy, that whether is it good to kill less number of people for the benefit of more number of people. And it provokes some questions, also some questions of bioethics, whether it is correct to do such things or not.
Hello everybody, I am Manasa, research scholar working under Dr. Vaishali, Department of English, Bangalore University. The broader area of my research is cyberpunk fiction, and this is a joint paper by myself and Dr. Vaishali, and it is titled Peregrinations into the Realms of Feminist Cyberpunk. As we move into the era of Generation Z, where technological breakthroughs like metaverse, SpaceX, crypto world, and virtual reality have become increasingly prevalent by blurring the lines between fiction and reality, we are living the lives that exist in science fiction. With the advent of affordable paper made by the wood pulp in the 90s, crowd pleasing magazine materials like crime stories, detective fiction, and cheap sexual romances gained popularity. Subsequent to this development, science fiction saw its heyday in the form of magazines between 1930s and 1950s, ensuing in the golden era of science fiction. The evolution of science fiction from short stories to full-length novels led into the diversification of the genre. An aesthetic cohesion of science fiction with the phantasmagorical elements of cyberspace, entwined with punk music motifs, paved way to the formation of cyberpunk fiction as a unique genre. Under multinational corporations' domination, cyberpunk fiction often features a futuristic world in which technology becomes ubiquitous. It gets further intensified by themes such as artificial intelligence, virtual reality, and the impact of these technologies on society. Feminist cyberpunk fiction has its roots in the broader cyberpunk genre that emerged in the 90s, 1980s as a response to the growing prevalence of computers and technology in daily life. Early cyberpunk fiction extensively featured male characters, with the occasional presence of stereotypical female characters with insignificant and minor roles. With few exceptions like William Gibson's Molly Millions of Neuromancer, who uses cybernetic enhancement to become a skilled fighter, and the Mona Lisa Overdrive's Angie Mitchell are few exceptions in this regard. The significance of these female characters lies in their agency and complexity. Unlike many female characters in the science fiction of that age, they are not simply the love interests or plot devices for the male characters. They have their own goals, motivations, and personalities, and their actions drive the story forward. Under the John W. Campbell's editorship, Astounding Science Fiction became the most influential magazine of golden age of science fiction. Its publications included Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, Robert A. Heinlein's Future History Stories, and Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood Zen. In a 1938 letter to the magazine editor, a young fan urges Isaac Asimov to focus on the good, wholesome, free from women stories, stating it as the science and women stands pole apart. In appreciation of this, Isaac Asimov replies, when we want science fictions, we don't want spooning dames. Asimov's Nightfall, in this regard, is a significant work where no woman characters exist in the plot except for a few vague mentioning like childbearers. In line with this, as women writers began exploring the cyberpunk terrain, Neil Easterbrook in The Arc of Destruction and Reversal and Erasure in Cyberpunk declares the end of cyberpunk genre. Nancy Hadstock, 20th century feminist philosopher, argues that women have a unique perspective on the world due to their social location as members of a historically marginalized group. Her standpoint, feminism, is a theoretical framework that emphasizes the importance of women's lived experiences in understanding and challenging patriarchal structures of power and oppression. Implying Hastock's feminist standpoint feminism, Kadura dismisses the purported death of genre and upholds feminist cyberpunk as thriving site, as she says. Why is it that cyberpunk, a movement with the potential to deal with the fragmentation of the subject, becomes obsolete just at the moment when women writers begin to explore the connections between race, gender, sexuality, and cyberspace? Apart from sparse evidence of female engagement in the field, cyberpunk fiction had sustained on a white, purist, hardwired, heterosexual made ideologies. The genre lacked any political stance until Pat Cadigan was seen writing some serious hardcore punk fiction. Gina of Sinners works as a human synthesizer, creating virtual images for living, while her partner Mark desires to abandon his physical body and merge with technology. The novel explores the concept of mind versus body, and Ally of the Mind players, on the other hand, navigate the world where the consciousness is under technological surveillance, and their every move is tracked and monitored. The novel focuses on questions of identity by emphasizing the desire for disembodiment. Despite featuring strong female characters, it is argued that gender relations are sidestepped by Cadigan, as her work continuously, consciously emulate the typical male cyberpunk attributes or aesthetics. Feminist cyberpunk authors sought to challenge and subvert the patriarchal assumptions and the gender roles of traditional cyberpunk literature and explore the experiences of women and other marginalized groups in a world dominated by technology. As a distinct genre, it facilitates women to imagine rather than escape the world with technological mediation and advancement as an added advantage. Cyberpunk thus charts a course between utopia and dystopia, most often set in near future. Cyberpunk imagines a world where technology is a tool of both oppression and liberation. Poverty is pervasive in cyberpunk, and technological resources are expensive luxuries. Those who cannot access it are invariably regarded as underclass. Feminist cyberpunk fiction depicts how technology, often a luxury, oppresses and controls the marginalized groups such as women, people of color, and other minority identities. Resistance to this oppression is a common theme in this fiction, and the characters fighting against the power that seek to control are kept in parallel with these developments. In parallel with these developments, Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto of 1985 emerged as a blurring of boundaries of human-machine existences. Her work has significantly impacted the development of feminist cyberpunk literature, and her ideas continue to be influential today. The essay, with its cult cyborg figure, gave a new dimension to politicizing the genre and inspecting it on the grounds of gender and identity formation. By destabilizing the models of binary existences, the human and machine hybrid, a cyborg, blurs the beginning and the end of artificial and real. The concept of computer within the domestic space, which began as a fantasy, became integral to early cyberpunk writings. Feminist cyberpunk of the West persevered despite subduing masculine narratives. However, a global representation in the field is arguably limited. Although technology and the cyberspace revolution have rendered the notion of world as a global village, its permeability, however, is dependent on the long existing social structures and cultural practices. In the third world context, the gendering of technology reinforces women's estrangement from accessing it. The resulting alienation can significantly contribute to the underrepresentation of female writers from the developing countries in the cyberpunk literature. In this direction, Catherine Allen proposes a new promising categorization called feminist post cyberpunk to address non Anglo American feminist cyberpunk writers. This turn indeed is necessary to decenter the white American heterosexual man in occupying the main space. Additionally, the representation of non-dominant others in traditional cyberpunk writings through insignificant or contemptuous roles like cheap hackers, drug peddlers, and thieves are challenged by elevating them to the forefront with a plotline woven from the marginalized point of view. This paves way to more inclusive storytelling and fresh perspective formation. Feminist post cyberpunk takes most intriguing parts of the cyberpunk space, biotechnological engagement, urban dystopia, and the global networks, while rejecting its wide heterosexual masculine claims on both the subject and technology. Feminist post cyberpunk takes in a broader consideration of what it means to be gendered and raised in an age where technology transcends geopolitical borders and exists both outside and inside the body. As we delve into the world of feminist post cyberpunk fiction, it becomes apparent that the significant space is occupied by diaspora writers. However, these contributions become crucial for the genre to sustain, and prolific translations from the regional languages to English and vice versa becomes imperative in the current times. In this direction, Tarun Saint identifies prominent South Asian women writers contributing to the genre, which include Priya Sarukachabria, with Generation 14, Lavanya Lakshminarayan, and Manjula Padmanabhan, Rimi Chatterjee, to name a few. Akin to the traditional cyberpunk which thrived in the form of short stories, feminist post cyberpunk writers are embracing this form with their unique style and approach. A look into Manjula Padmanabhan's short story 2099 and a Lavanya Lakshminarayan's Samsara in a Teacup provides a microcosmic view of the genre's vibrancy and richness. A typical tech mediated post feminist cyberpunk features an augmented futuristic world which constitutes enhanced humans with indomitable spirit and capabilities. The concept of human enhancement or augmentation has surfaced out of the mankind's long standing obsession to conquer death. Despite an array of fictional writer works has speculated this relentless pursuit in its own unique way, cyberpunk has elevated this theme using cutting-edge technologies that blurs the lines between life and death. The themes of both Manjula Padmanabhan's short story 2099 and Lavanya Lakshminarayan's Samsara in a Teacup has, themes related to death in a futuristic India. Even though the gender issues and feminist politics are not explicitly apparent in the chosen short stories, the mainstream politics that these writers embark on remains noteworthy here. It is important to recognize that progress is not always linear, and comparing Asian women writers to the Western counterparts is both reductive and unsophisticated. Instead, it becomes imperative to highlight unique perspectives and dialogues on the imagination of otherness that non Western writers, women writers depict through their fictional work, which has potential to challenge both Eurocentric and phallocentric narratives. Thank you.
My name is Mariam Salim and I am a research scholar of Kerala University. Today I'm going to present a paper on feminist representations and the creation of a new fictional role model in the selected text of Rona MacLeod series. Rona MacLeod series is authored by Lynn Anderson and the series belongs to Scottish serial killer fiction, or maybe you could also categorize it under the forensic fiction. We have two texts for discussion here, None But the Dead published in 2016, that is the 11th book in the series, and The Sins of the Dead published in 2018, which is the 13th book in the series. None But the Dead takes the readers through the investigation of a series of incidents linked to the discovery of 13 magic flowers representing the souls of dead children who had attended an island school. Rhoda ventures to unearth the significance of their long forgotten deaths, relying on the recent dead remains that were discovered. Sins of the Dead is the 13th book in the series that echoes the ancient religious practice of sin eating. Here, Rona investigates a series of murders committed by a killer who is aware of forensic techniques. A sin eater is a person who consumes a ritual meal in order to spiritually take on the sins of a deceased person. The food was believed to absorb the sins of a recently dead person, thus absolving the soul of the person. The paper is divided into three sections. The first section is titled Female Corpses, the Objects of Eroticization. The second section is titled The Rise of Female Investigators in Crime Fiction. The third section is The Embodied Experience of Rona in None But the Dead and the Sins of the Dead. The first section talks about the representation of female corpses in crime fiction and the elements of eroticization, robbing them of respect and merely showcasing them as objects of voyeurism. This section also tries to explore the views regarding the body and how their role has evolved over time. The second section deals with the inclusion of women investigators in crime fiction genre as opposed to the earlier trend wherein women ended up as victims of violence and how they challenge the patriarchal and traditional expectations that crimes are solved by men. The third section deals with the embodied experience of women and how feminism has changed the archetypes and traditions related to women's roles in the narrative. We also see the different tools and strategies at work from a literary, philosophical, and medical humanities point of view. To begin with, according to S. Van Dyne in his 20 Rules for Writing Detective Stories, there simply must be a corpse in a detective novel, and the deader the corpse, the better. Corpse is an unavoidable element of forensic fiction. They are the physical remains of the crime. Female forensic thrillers have inscribed a new treatment to the corpse, questioning how it had been traditionally portrayed. Western philosophy has been built over Platonic and Aristotelian binary constructions of the body with special emphasis on the Cartesian division of subjects as two separate entities, mind and body. According to this Cartesian division, the mind is a powerful tool often trapped in a body that is seen as a burden. One of the most criticized constructions by feminist theories has been the construction of mind as male and the body as female. As a result, emphasis was placed only on mind. Misogynist thought is commonly found a convenient self-justification for women's secondary positions by containing them within bodies that represented, even constructed as frail, imperfect, subject to various intrusions which are not under conscious control. And these functions render women vulnerable in need of protection or special treatment as prescribed by patriarchy, according to Elizabeth Grosz. As a result of second and third wave feminism, we can see that the corpse has achieved a new role. This means going beyond the Cartesian construction of the subject as a body subjected to a mind in order to incorporate a material subject into the equation using phenomenology. Now let us dive deep into the first section of the paper titled Female Corpses, the Objects of Eroticization. Most crime fiction had females as the victims of violence. They had no voice, and even if they did appear, they had no better role than a corpse. Even the cover pages of the crime novels feasted on the body of dead women, for example, Death for a Hussy by Alvin Lee Martin, Violent Night by Wade Harrison, The Corpse by Carter Brown, Dead in Bed by Day Kane, to name a few. When the corpse appears at the beginning of the story, it is investigated by the male detective and more likely a male forensic doctor. They will look for evidence, take photographs, and perform an autopsy in order to identify it and solve the crime. This process will construct the victim as a silent character in her own story, usually labeled and exposed to possible witnesses and even her killer in photographs and video records. They might be subjected to different kinds of gazes, like the inquisitive gaze of a tourist or the informative gaze of a news reporter. Changing the way women's bodies and corpses are represented in crime fiction will open up rooms for the challenging of traditional modes of representation and traditional discourses that both female authors and audiences can negotiate new ways of seeing and constructing their bodily identities. Horsley observed that the mid-century produced women writers of non-investigative crime novels who contributed powerful representations of female subjectivity to traditions of literary noir. Of the earlier 20th century female detectives, the best known is unquestionably Jane Marple, who can herself be placed in a tradition of genteel female investigators featuring in detective fiction from the 19th century on, all of whom were to a considerable extent constrained by the conventions and assumptions of Victorian or early 20th century England. Second wave and third wave feminist movements, however, have prompted a change in both the creation and reception of female in crime fiction. First, by creating the political subject women and then introducing her into the role of detective in the fixed masculine crime fiction tradition. This led to a questioning of the heteronormative traditional detective, and it has allowed female audiences to reimagine crime fiction as a female space. The second section, titled The Rise of Female Investigators in Crime Fiction, let us begin with the views on the body. There are three main categories regarding the views on the body, according to Elizabeth Grosz. To begin with, some feminists like Mary Wollstonecraft, Shulamit Firestone, and even eco-feminists, for them maternity was something to be overcome. The second category includes Julia Kristeva, Juliet Mitchell, and psychoanalytic and Marxist feminists. This group had a more positive attitude towards the body. They held it was not biology per se, but the ways in which the society chose to organize itself that leads to the oppression of women. The final category, including Gayatri Spivak, Lucy Gray, Helen Schicksal, had a more and more positive approach. That is, they believed that body had a meaning. Now, 21st century saw the rise of female investigators in crime fiction. Nonetheless, the huge shift in the forensic fiction genre in recent years is remarkable. The area of forensic science is now a popular career for women, and there is no shortage of female experts in the forefront of all branches of science. We see that women have been relegated from scientific discourse for centuries. They were denied access to science, the prestigious form of valid knowledge. The creation of female forensic doctors reflects the social developments of feminism and the final access of women to science. So, this is a key for feminism. The third section, titled The Embodied Experience of Rona in None But the Dead and the Sins of the Dead. Let us talk about the books that we have taken up for discussion. Lynn Anderson is a founder of Bloody Scotland, a leading Scottish international crime writing festival. Her protagonist, Rona MacLeod, is a forensic pathologist. Anderson places emphasis not only on the magic of forensic science, but the charismatic ability of Rona to orchestrate the gathering of cops, forensic experts, and institutional officials into an approximately respectful encounter with the dead. It is striking that she embodies a great range of responses to the dead, as a witness, carer, or as a bereaved, certainly. She encounters witnesses and understands the dead and lends the respect that it deserves. When she is left alone at the tent with the dead, it seemed to be the beating heart of the investigation. Once the body was removed and the heart stopped, the donor believes the dignity of death would be preserved as it would be. And Runa's crucial embodiment of all these forms of witnesses includes that sometimes there is growing disdain for the bodies. She feels like a mortuary specimen herself on account of interacting with the dead more than she does with the living. The 11th book, None But the Dead, carries in its cover page that none but the dead are left to tell the tale. The protagonist is acknowledging that this is not just a body but a human being. So, what is significant here is that Anderson has acknowledged the female protagonist brings additional strengths and values to the crime scene. This fresh perspective allows the reader to engage on a human level with the protagonist who is seeing the body who has died as a human being, as an individual rather than just a dead body. Now, let me conclude. We see certain strategies at work that calls for the challenging of the representation of corpses in the selected texts. A female forensic scientist encountering a female corpse itself herself identifies with the victim, thereby establishing a discourse on what it means to be a female in such unfortunate situations. Another strategy is the autoptic process that allows the forensic scientist to access the dead person's point of view, and it is an important tool for feminist reformulation. We see that the female investigator is literally exploring the insides of the body of the victim that was earlier positioned as a site of pleasure for men. Thus, These female characters are set about resisting the voyeuristic portrayal of the dead bodies and lending them respect and care, exhibiting signs of humanity. So that's the end of my paper, and these are the works cited. You can refer them for further information about the text. Thank you so much.
Pranam, Namaste, and greetings to one and all. Being the chairperson of this technical session, I welcome you all to this technical session and International Science Fiction Conference organized virtually by Indian Association for Science Fiction Studies, Bangalore, Karnataka. Friends, I would like to introduce myself in brief. I am Dr. Sudhir Matpati. I have been working as an associate professor in English at the Department of English in Adarsh Mahavidyalaya, Umarga, district Usmanabad, Maharashtra. Friends, at the outset, I would like to extend gratitude towards the organizing committee and especially to the founder president of this Indian Association for Science Fiction Studies, respected Dr. Purushottam sir, Secretary General of this Indian Association for Science Fiction Studies, respected Dr. Srinarahari sir, the convener of this conference, virtual conference rather, respected Hemlata ma'am, for giving me an opportunity to be the part of this international virtual conference and providing a space to act as a chairperson for this technical session. Here friends, for this technical session, we had four paper presenters who have presented their papers nicely, covering different shades, themes and ideas represented in different science fiction works. Here friends, I would like to congratulate all the paper or all the four paper presenters who have presented their papers in this session, and their names are we had Divya Shikhar, we have Manasa G, we had Minal Kale, and we had Mariam Salim. So I congratulate all of you for your excellent paper presentation. In fact friends, all the papers presented here are really comprehensive as far as the structure, scope, different elements and nature are concerned. But still I would like to pass on some constructive comments on these four papers. So here friends, at first I would like to comment on the paper entitled Identity Crisis in Clones, a distinct possibility or a far-fetched idea in Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. It was presented by Divya Shikhar, who is a PhD research scholar from GLA University, Mathura. Here friends, he has chosen quite excellent piece of science fiction literature written by a Nobel laureate, Japanese origin British author Kazuo Ishiguro. Here friends, this Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go, this particular science fiction deals with the idea of cloning and organ donations, which are quite frequent terms in today's postmodern era, if I am not wrong. Friends, the setting of this novel is of the late 20th century England, where human beings are cloned and bred for the purpose of harvesting their organs once they achieve their biological requirements and reach to the expected age or age limit. In fact friends, we all are very much witnessed to many science fiction works which deal with the different themes or ideas of cloning and breeding. We have the example of Aldous Huxley's dystopian novel called Brave New World, which was published in I think 1931, if I'm not wrong. Here friends, if I'm not wrong, it was an early fictional endeavor, or it might be an early fictional endeavor which had touched and explored the ideas of cloning and biological production in a particular biological laboratory. Here friends, besides all these things, we have the example of Paul Anderson's renowned story of Man, published in 1953. We have Gordon Rattray Taylor's work, the renowned work The Biological Time Bomb, which was I think published in 1963. Then we have one more such piece of science fiction called Nancy Farmer's The House of the Scorpion, and many more such titles are there in the galaxy of science fiction, which have made the terms like cloning, breeding, genetic engineering very much popular in the stream of science fiction, or stream of society rather. Here friends, as far as Divya Shikhar's today's paper is concerned, more or less it also covers up the same issues of cloning and organ donation as well. In fact, the scope and nature of this paper could have been switched or little bit increased by incorporating one more such novel to accompany Kazuo Ishiguro's Never Let Me Go. But overall speaking, Mr. Divya Shikhar has made an excellent attempt to explore the crucial elements of cloning and organ donation, and simultaneously he highlighted the significant issues like commodification of a human body. We have capitalism. Then he also talked about marginalization, search or quest for identity. Then we have identity crisis, morality of organ harvesting, and societal approach towards identity and individuality through science fiction works. Here, friends, the second paper entitled uh, Peregrinations into the Realm of the Feminist Cyberpunk, which was presented by Meenal, which was presented by Manasa G, who is a PhD research scholar from Bangalore University, Karnataka. Here, friends, she has also nicely presented her paper and covered various elements like cyberpunk, cyborg, then advancement in science and technology, then the impact of advancement in science and technology on society. She has also talked about the fantasy or fantastic depiction rather of science and technology depicted by William Gibson, Asimov, and representation of women characters in their particular science fiction works. Besides all these things, friends, she has also talked about the renowned British American science fiction writer like Pat Cadigan, and commented on the feminist cyberpunk fiction and discussed how the highly developed technology or advanced science and technology operates, suppresses, controls, and manipulates the marginalized roots, including women, and how these figures respond to the same. Here, friends, Manasa G has also talked about Donna Haraway's Cyborg Manifesto, published in 1985, and pointed out how this Donna Haraway's works influenced the development, popularity, recognition of feminist cyberpunk literature. Here, friends, the way Manasa G has touched and talked about the feminist post cyberpunk text, and adequate space has been acquired by the diaspora writer is very much appreciable. As she has given us the example of Lavanya Lakshminarayan, then we had the example of Manjula Padmanabhan and their literature or short stories rather. But besides all these things, we can also talk about S.B. Divya, Vandana Singh, Sukanya Datta, and so on, for or a better understanding as far as these crucial terms or jargons are concerned. Here, friends, but we all know it very well that the term cyberpunk and literature based on this is being explored a lot in this phase of life, and we are very much know it. We know it very well. The term cyberpunk is made from the words cybernetics and pun, and it is known to all of us, but still I would like to talk a few words about it. Here, friends, cybernetics means a science studying control and communication in the human beings or animal and the machine, and punk, which was a youth movement which terrorized the world in 1970s and early 1980s. Here, friends, Bruce Baitke was the figure who had originated this term, and it was the title of his short story Cyberpunk, published in I think 1983, if I am not wrong, and I was born in 1983. Here, friends, in short, rather, cyberpunk fiction talks about or deals with the high technology, including artificial intelligence and virtual reality, and low-class people, in which the women characters have been marginalized initially, but now it has been switched, and justice to the women is being given by the feminist science fiction writers, and it paved the way to the gendering the technology as far as feminist post-cyberpunk texts are concerned. And if I'm not wrong, this is what Manasa G has tried to present through her paper, or in a very swift but comprehensive manner. Here, friends, the title of the third paper presented by Meenal Kale from Nagpur, Maharashtra was Jayant Narlikar's Virus and Extrapolation of Aphonic Violence by Cyberpunk. Here, friends, as far as her overall presentation is concerned, it was no doubt quite a good one. Here, friends, we have just discussed the term cyberpunk while discussing the paper presented by Manasa G, the previous paper, as we know. But still, as far as cyberpunk is concerned, it is no doubt one of the well-known postmodern subgenres of science fiction, and it contains the ingredients of fantasy and fantasy-related elements. Here, friends, the emerging electronic society in postmodern era is also a kind of construction of typical society based on the fantasy and contemporary, what we can say, science and technology, or advanced science and technology, if I'm not wrong. Here, friends, we can define this cyberpunk or this term as it is all about the struggle for dominance between mankind and machine or technology, and the way in which developing technology will come to influence human life. So this is what cyberpunk is, and this is what Meenal Kale has tried to present with the help of Jayant Narlikar sir's literary piece, renowned literary piece rather, called Virus. Here, in fact, as Meenal Kale has pointed out in her presentation, this work called Virus, which talked about the destruction created through electronic gadgets and depicts dystopian picture of future or future society which is completely affected by a virus planted by extraterrestrial, and how it makes the people, society, state, authorities completely weak and helpless. Here, friends, this work talks about the, if I'm not wrong, the dependency complex, where human beings are not ready to live without technology, and this technology or its advancement leads human life towards the destruction if it is completely taken into account in negative manner. In fact, friends, science, technology, advancement or advanced science and technology and all such things are for prosperity, soundness and upliftment of human life, but it should be used in positive manner. If it is used with the negative intentions, then it will lead us towards the destruction only. As a cellular phone or a mobile phone is to have for only sound communication, but it can be used for communication, and it can also be used as a timer in time bomb. Here, friends, I think there is no need to talk about future and anticipating things based on such science fiction, but today also it has become very difficult to point out whether we are being manipulated by machine, science and technology, or science and technology is being manipulated by us. Here, Meenal Kale has rightly said in a presentation at the climax of her presentation that we are not defined by the borders but by bonds and habits of not knowing. The unknown is nothing but the destruction, and I think it was the crux of Meenal Kale's presentation. And here, finally, the title of the fourth and last paper presented by Mariam Salim from Trivandrum, Kerala, was Feminist Representation and the Creation of a New Fictional Role Model in the Selected Text of Rohana MacLeod series. Here, friends, the presented Mariam Salim, she deals with Rohana MacLeod series authored by Lynn Anderson. She has nicely explored two works, and those are None But the Dead and Scenes of the Dead, published in 2018. Her presentation has been nicely divided into four different parts, which have been presented under the different titles, such as female corpse, the object of eroticization, the rise of female investigators in crime fiction, and the embodied experience of Rohana in None But the Dead and the Scenes of the Dead. And the last part was in her presentation, it was the conclusion. Here, friends, in the first part of the paper, she has talked about the representation of female corpse in crime fiction and the elements of eroticization, robbing them of respect and merely showcasing them as object of origin. Here, she has also tried to highlight the different views about the body and how their role has evolved over time. In the second part of her presentation, friends, She has talked about the inclusion of women investigators in crime fiction as opposite to the earlier trend where women ended up as victim or violence, and how they challenged the patriarchal or traditional expectations that crimes are solved by men. Here, friends, in the last part of her presentation or the last part of her paper, she has talked about embodied experience of women and how feminism has changed the archetypes and traditions related to women's role in the natives. Here, friends, she has discussed the different tools and strategies at work from literary or what we can say philosophical and medical humanities point of view. In short, friends, Mariam Salim has made a nice attempt of dealing with feminist representation and different roles based on fantasy as far as the select text of Rona MacLeod series are concerned. Here, friends, uh, to conclude the session, I would like to repeat that science fiction is one of the foremost and emerging genres of literature. This is the genre which contains diverse issues and themes in its fiction and gains the attention of the people and its readers. It happens because of its scientific speculations, applications of fantasy, predictions, visionary approaches, presentation of the changing psychology of human beings, presentation of the what we can say mounting impact of science and technology on human life or society, exploration of the unexplored issues, and many other crucial elements are there. But here, friends, as a result of such diverse comprehensiveness and variety of issues, some subgenres of science fiction have become or have come into force to deal with all these elements, and it covers different elements of the science and technology across the globe. Then society is, after all, the part of the globe as well. Here, friends, I think the place of science fiction literature in the society has become quite crucial, and it has been playing very significant role in human beings lives or in society. After all, it depends on the approaches and the way people or society deal with it, that is in negative way or positive way. It's up to us only. So once again, I congratulate all the four paper presenters for exploring the stream of science fiction from different perspectives and contributing to enrich and strengthen the bond between science fiction and society. I am also thankful to the organizing committee once again for providing me an opportunity to chair this technical session and to be the part of this international science fiction conference organized virtually by Indian Association for Science Fiction Studies, Bangalore, Karnataka. Thank you one and all. Thank you so much.
Good morning, professors, and my chairperson, good morning, and all of the participants, good morning. I am Karnaharan from Thandai Periyar Government Arts and Science College, Tiruchirappalli. My paper title is The Implementation of LMS is Essential for Enhancing ESL Learners for Communicative Competence. This is my title. In the context of English as a second language, the importance of communicative competence cannot be overstated. Effective communication in English is crucial for students to succeed in academic and professional and social learners. However, enhancing the communicative competence can be a daunting task for ESL learners, especially those who are not exposed to an English speaking environment. So in this paper, I discuss about the broad area of LMS, and I cover the major area of whatever the benefits of LMS and other those things. Let's go to the presentation. My paper title is The Implementation of Learning Management System Essential for Enhancing ESL Learners communicative competence. What is a learning management system? It is a very important essential in society. It's one kind of software. It is application is designed to support the administration, documentation and tracking, reporting and delivery of educational courses, training programs or learning and development programs. With an LMS, instructors and trainers can create organized course content, assignments, and as well as monitor the progress all over the things. Through LMS we can succeed it. Okay, blended learning is a very important thing in students. Mixture of learning with online and offline, this is a concept. It's a blended learning. LMS for students. LMS is one of the important concept in language learning, because the learning management system offers a good value for students for learning perspectives. Learners through LMS, learners can access the course materials through a website or some other kind of mediums. Typically, we are web-based platform and interact with the content at their own space and on their schedule. LMSs also often provide tools for communication between the learners and trainers, as well as collaboration and social learning among learners. I chosen 50 undergraduate students for this course. I offer some using the LMS methodology to how they are improving with the particular course. I have used this study. In this study, I have framed 4 research questions. The 4 research questions are: what are the most effective features of a learning management system for enhancing communicative competence among ESL learners? And next one, how do ESL learners perceive the use of LMS to enhance their communicative competence? And what is the role of LMS in facilitating self-directed learning for ESL learners to enhance their communicative competence? Then the challenges and barriers for implementing LMS to enhance communicative competence among ESL learners and teachers. This is one of the major concept. It is my one of important website. All the system is managed by me through creating on new website for students for updating the modules and videos and content and quiz program. All the things I have included in my website. Then students come to my website and learn about those things, like flipped classroom. After they have to come class, they prepared this our lessons by step, then come to class. It is one of the easiest method. In this website I have provided the videos and content, which in videos I have included the cartoon items and the animation items, then lessons like a PDF they can easily download, and quiz programs and worksheets. These are the things I have added for each lessons. So once they came to classes, after completing their lessons, it is easy to discuss with them, and they have a full concentrate on classes, and teachers have some more time to communicate out specifically to the particular topic. The discussion time is maximum is covered through this platform. Is very helpful for them. This is my sample modules I have created for students. First, the simple basic grammar sentences I have prepared for improving their communicative competence skills. It is one of the important part of my paper. This is the result from students, how they are adapting this technique as a students. They have submitted some data from I collected some data from them. It is confirmed that they are using learning management system and web-based models. It is quite often something interesting, makes students very interesting on learning the subjects. Like they feel very good, and they are voluntarily participate in other studies. Some of the learning perspective they have better improved in their communication, and the course of students, overall the course of the students, I collected some weekly feedbacks. Through this feedback, their potentials have some important ideas, and they have said that some of ideas which needed to be changed. I also followed the instruction learner centered approach, helpful for them for innovative teaching methodology. Implementing a learning management system can be highly effective way to enhance communicative competence of English as a second language learners. Here a few reasons. Because increased access to learning materials is the first thing. They have a easily take notes or whatever things in just clicking the websites. Then personalized learning, they can easily go to the website and they can personally, without any disturbance, they can study from home or whatever they want. And wherever their features of LMS is interactive multimedia content, which includes video, audio, visual materials, PDF and slides, quiz materials, assignments, and gamification method of games, all the things helpful for students for this kind of communicative perspective. Then mobile compatibility, they can access anywhere in else. They can use mobile phones. Their students easily use mobile phones wherever they want, whenever they want them. And authentic materials, I have providing some good materials for them. It is students may not search those websites for good material. I providing the good materials, then students can focusly learning the particular things. Then how the LMS enhance the communicative competence. It is very flexibility and gives a convenient time for them, and it is a very collaborative learning and engagement and motivation. In engagement and motivation perspective, they have interestly participate with my lectures. It is one of part of it. And LMS is facilitating self-directed learning. Self-directed learning, which means individualized meaning. Access to the resources, they can easily access anywhere else. Then through this LMS system, the tracking progress, how the lessons are covered by the students, what is the average system. It is helpful for teachers to monitor the students, how they are performing in test or some classes. And feedback and assessment. Feedback is provide learners with immediate feedback on their progress, and as well as this opportunities for self-assessment and challenges and barriers for using learning management system. Training and support. ESL learners and teachers may require to training to learn how to use LMS. This is one of the major challenges faced by learners and teachers also. And technical issues like poor internet connectivity or technical knowledges or hardware issues, it may be a barrier to that LMS. And curriculum designs, it may be challenging in LMS. For educators may need to create and adapt instructional material to needs of ESL learners, creating materials. But once they have created this is my presentation. Thank you professors and conference teams. I thank my co-participants and staff members and my research guide for giving me a wonderful opportunity here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Amandeep Singh, and I am currently working as an assistant professor at Nirma University, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences. I am here to present my paper on post-humanist reading on Kazuo Ishiguro's Clara and the Sun, which was recently released in the year 2021 during a pandemic, and it is more or less like a children's science fiction. Now, when we are talking about science fiction, it's not that it teaches us to predict or us to help assess technology, but it tells us more about the changing phenomena of human sentiment, human sentience, actually in a world which is in a changing world of citizenship and globalization. And in this world, AI has become more adoptable and more what we call as a means of living, actually. And Kazuo Ishiguro's novel The Clara and the Sun mainly belongs to the category of science fictional AI, which is not mainly about the hopes and fears of particular technology, but acts as a metaphor for societal issues. Actually, is that how things cannot be divided in terms of binaries, and earlier on it was mainly science fiction genre was mainly categorized into dystopian terms and post-apocalyptic terms actually, but science fictional AI is mainly inclined towards presenting having a representation in soft science fiction, which caters to all our demands actually, and helps one understand the relationship between this human machine and human non-human, and to see from see and to see things from a perspective of a non-human, which is Clara, as she is a humanoid or humanoid AI, or what Kazuo Ishiguro calls that artificial friend actually, in a dystopian world where a human species is on the verge of extinction or on the verge of loneliness, which is not clear in it actually. Now, when Ishiguro presents AI as conscious machine rather than a manufactured risk, he mainly he mainly reflects societal issues that are beyond technology, beyond the current phenomena actually. Matlab in terms of sentience, that meaning in terms of sentience, and he has offered a detailed account of human condition and social commentary in the fiction in the form of parent child narrative, or parent or a companion narrative actually. And the focal point of science fiction is mainly the interaction between human and technology, which Ishiguro has manifested very brilliantly actually. Now, talking about Kazuo Ishiguro, he is one of the contemporary writers of the last 2 decades, and he has written phenomenal works like Pale View Hills, The Remains of the Day, and Never Let Me Go, his most celebrated work actually, and the Buried Genre. And mainly he does not uh, mainly he does not uh, try to incline towards any genre, or call himself a science fiction writer actually, but he uses science fiction genre actually to engage public actually on the current state and the potential impacts of AI actually. And in his fictions actually, Ishiguro manifests themes of memory, unreliable narrator, and human relations of the past, which actually shows the internal struggles of the main characters as well, where he focuses on frugality of words, psychological accounts, and the internal struggles which he gives actually. And Ishiguro uses science fiction as a way to help engage public and educate the young generation about the other fields of AI and the potential of AI. And since Kazuo Ishiguro is a Japanese writer, he has a very different perception towards AI fiction or humanoid fiction, as compared to the Western narratives, which mainly tend to show it in terms of post-apocalypse, or they have a very negative attitude, or very too dystopian attitude, while Ishiguro has less dystopian attitude, and we can see it in examples like from others, means anime series like Doraemon or Astro Boy actually, which are very good examples of portraying AI in a very positive limelight actually. And and science fiction offers this detail about the future, or the alternate world which we are living in actually, and how our perceptions are of AI are formed actually on daily basis. And it is through Clara, the post-human actually, that the readers learn that humans are extremely complex biological information processing machine, which is difficult to interpret in terms of binary opposition. And one more thing that Ishiguro has focused actually in Clara and the Sun is mainly he has dealt about the topic of loneliness actually, which has also gained relevance during the COVID-19 pandemic, and even after the COVID-19 pandemic, where most of us have been addicted or found companionship in technological devices like mobile phones, computers, and so on actually. So we cannot discuss in terms of binary opposition, and by giving anthropomorphic features to a humanoid robot like Clara, actually he has in turn made it a philosophical fiction which shows the topic of loneliness, even mirrors actually that how the adoption of AI is boosted in modern times, and how the digital first initiative has become a priority. And Clara presents a certain vision about human life, that and the difference between sentimentality and emotional manipulation, which has a reference of Turner's test through the character of Mr. Capaldi, who tries to show that humanoids like Clara are very close to achieving sentience. That's what he tries to do, and that's how Clara and the Sun, as a piece of AI literature, uh, provokes us actually of thinking in a new manner about language, literature, and computation as well. And mainly through this post humanistic reading, Ishiguro mainly presents mainly unravels the dystopian notion and sentient consciousness actually. That is actually, he actually presents technology in a very techno optimistic manner, and it is through Clara's interaction with real world characters like Josie, Helen, and others actually, which help her develop cognitive functions, or high psychological functions, which are necessary actually to gain consciousness for the character, and categorization, memory, and learning. And it is and since Kazuo Ishiguro has used childlike logic throughout the character of Clara, he mainly tends to portray the naive behavior of humans actually, and helps us to ponder actually on questions like on existential epiphany, and why do human beings have loneliness, and why we are fundamentally lonely actually. Are humans fundamentally lonely, or what actually? And since Kazuo Ishiguro is not predicting a near future, but what he wants to do is he tends to defamiliarize us actually, so that he can break through the pervasive realism which is present actually. And that is why, and by doing it actually, he's also indicating that humans themselves have lost actually what sentiments, and have become artificial in the process of gaining money, gaining development. And we can also see a clear reference in Blade Runner movie also, which actually mirrors this concept actually, that how humans have become more artificial, while a machine is gaining more sentience and become more like human actually, or reached or have attained to become almost human. And it is through Clara's introvert soliloquies actually that we come to know about the quality of AI consciousness, or human consciousness actually, that how human consciousness can be transferred, or what we call adaptable, or uploaded to someone else actually, in the form of humanoid or a robot actually, and how it can be simulated. Now Ishiguro, through this human machine relationship, addresses the concerns of identity, subjectivity, consciousness, and he very recurringly makes Turing's test as a reference point to all this. And it is Clara's ability to speak, learn, think, and act actually, which complicates the subject object divide between human and machine actually. That is like means processing information pattern and using it actually to configure human being, or to be as close to human being actually. And when we are talking about post-humanism, Kazuo Ishiguro belongs to the category of critical post-humanist actually, who is critiquing human exceptionalism, or what we call anthropocentrism actually. Now and since whatever Kazuo Ishiguro is talking in Clara and the Sun from the perspective of human relationship, or how humanity has developed relationship with technology actually, and and how technology can be a remedy to the disease named loneliness, actually loneliness or existential loneliness, actually, which has become abject in today's world. Now Ishiguro, by depicting this this fundamental shift in the human relationship to technology, mainly supports the concept of techno optimism, which claims which actually lays emphasis on humanizing potential of technological achievements through AI, actually. And Clara is almost near to perfection, actually, when she becomes curious about learning about the search for emotional existence, and projects emotions as the essence of humanity, actually. And that's how Ishiguro actually reinforces the idea of human exceptionality or anthropocentrism in a positive lamplight, actually. In a positive lamplight he tries to focus it, actually. Now, when we are talking about the concept of AI, or the parent-child narrative, so Kazuo Ishiguro has actually through his parent-child narrative actually made it a piece of child AI literature, actually, which actually shows the potential that the human product, actually, or the next generation gives them immortality, or or some kind of sense of living, actually, we can say that. And when we are talking about the concept of Sanjay Khan, actually, or the human presence in robot, which actually projects the desire, actually, to preserve the human even in the artificial construct also, means somehow the human memory, the human behavior, or what we call the anthropomorphic features, can be rendered, actually, as transferable or adaptable, actually, to make by making human memory or human sentience immortal, actually. Now, when we're talking about the post-humanist perspective, actually, it unveils, actually, about the literature's potential to convey what it means to be something other than human, as the whole narrative, actually, is told from the point of view of a child AI, or a machine, actually, which indicates, actually, that Ishiguro tries to tell us about the current state of human values through this machine, actually, and how science fiction acts as a powerful genre, and how critical posthumanism is it's like a fictional indulgence, actually, into the desires and anxieties of becoming post-human, actually, while remaining ultimately in the fictional framework, actually. And it mainly suggests new types of sociability that are fully recognized, that are not fully realized till now. For example, like how we can use currently we are using like speech analysis model and speech technology, but how this technology can be enhanced, or how one can give sentience to means AI or artificial friend or humanoid robot, to help it to mingle with the humans, actually. And this is actually the new social systems which has actually spurred, actually, and it is in continuous flux, actually, depicting the continuous human flux, human flux, actually, to define humanity, actually. And so what I conclude, that as an AI narrative, it means it can be interpreted as a dramatical and metaphorical means, giving way questions to like human conditions and philosophical questions in general, actually. So that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, my name is Wendy Van Camp. I'm a speculative poet, an author, and an editor of poetry anthologies. I'm also the poet laureate for the city of Anaheim in California, USA. I will be reading an excerpt of my paper, Every Word Matters, using poetry concepts to enrich your prose. Poets learn to make every word count. Memorable writing is powerful writing. Every word should matter. We pack as much in a tiny line as an author might a full paragraph. A poet does not have the luxury of using full sentences to convey their ideas. A standard poem needs to fit in a few scant pages. Ideas that a novelist may explore in a chapter need to be shrunk down, yet still contain the power and emotions of a longer work. I began as a science fiction author, writing novels and short stories. I took my love of reading the Golden Age science fiction classics penned by Heinlein, Asimov, or Clarke as inspiration. At first, I wrote into the dark, meaning I let my stories develop organically without monitoring what spilled from my fingers to the keyboard. As I published my first pieces, I realized planning the structure of my stories was a great help in finishing them faster. I became more of a plot-focused writer, blending my love of story discovery with an outline. It was a significant improvement. Still, there was something missing. 2 years after I published my first book, I stumbled on the haiku-style poetry form known as sci-fi-ku. I wrote these short three-line poems to create simple posts for my writing blog. There are many rules to remember with this form. Understanding haiku and its science fiction counterpart requires effort. Over time and with years of practice, my mind would take a concept and come up with lines of either 5 or 7 syllables with ease. I discovered there was something extra in writing poetry that I did not encounter before as a novelist. As I studied poetry to improve the sci-fi-ku poems I had grown to love, I learned of concepts that poets use to improve their poetry in any form. I feel the techniques can improve and enrich the writing style of any author. It certainly has made me the speculative poet I am today and the writer I aspire to be. My favorite concepts to strengthen writing are meaning, voice, and word choice. These are not the only concepts in writing to learn, but for me, they are what I consider most important. Meaning. Close your eyes. Envision a scene. What do you notice as a writer? Does the scene invoke a memory? What comes to your senses? A distinct taste? A scent that lingers? Sounds off in the distance? How does this place make you feel? All these questions are to do with meaning. As poets, we are concise with our details. We make connections with emotional words to people and places to invoke emotion in readers. When I write a poem, I name my characters with an emotional word to describe them instead of a regular name. This lessens my word count, but it also creates a stronger emotional impact. The reader has more information about the character than a simple generic name. It allows them to imagine something unique to themselves beyond what I write on the page. In this way, the reader becomes part of the poem. This is a powerful concept to use in science fiction world building. By using descriptive words to evoke emotion in the naming of people and places in your universe, it creates more impact. Seek to envision the places your characters will inhabit. Find precise words to explain the emotional meaning of your settings and characters. The more you can connect the history and setting with the emotions of your characters, the more alive the world will seem to your readers. Voice. When I first wrote poetry, I wrote alone without realizing there were other speculative poets in the world. I felt as if no other poet loved to write about science, technology, and the stars the way I did. Although I followed the rules of my chosen form of poetry, I did so under my own interpretation. When my poetry was first published, other poets declared that I was doing my poetry wrong. No one else wrote this form as I did. For a long time, I believed those naysayers. Yet literary journals continued to publish my work. This caused me to reevaluate my situation. I had an epiphany. The answer was that I had developed a unique poetic voice during my time writing in isolation. Not only was I not wrong, but I was doing something right. I learned to write with my own sense of style. When readers see my work, there is usually no doubt I am the poet. How am I different? I write about topics others do not see, but enjoy once they do. I inject humor into my sci-fi coup, or I make an environmental statement. Not an easy task, with only 3 short lines. As an author, I find my voice has also developed in a unique way. When I write a story, my words draw from my own experiences and culture. I write what I know, using my experiences to bring realism to characters in science fiction or fantasy settings. I've written articles, short stories, countless poems, and I am at work on several novels. Every project brings experience to my narrative voice. Word choice. In poetry, every word matters due to the short length of our word. We seek to find the correct word in 2 ways. The word's basic literal definition, but also how the word appears in a given context. Will the word work with the intended audience for the poem? Do we meet the reader's expectations, or do we choose to subvert those expectations? Word choice is a true balancing act where we describe feelings, characters, or settings without being heavy-handed. As a micro-poet, word choice is paramount to my creation process. It is the most important of concepts that I have covered. I choose words based on their interesting sound. I like to find words with double meanings or phrases that hint at longer sentences to convey an idea. When writing science fiction, word choice is also important. We make up words to support our stories, to describe new technologies, objects, or civilizations. The words we choose for our prose needs to be intriguing to the ear. They uplift an old idea into something new, yet is immediately understandable. We remove adverbs because their use shows our verbs are not strong enough to stand alone. In conclusion, the concepts behind the creation of poetry do not need to remain with those that compose verse. These writing concepts are also useful for writers of prose. I have briefly covered the ideas behind meaning, voice, and word choice in this essay because I feel out of the many tools I use as a writer, these are the most useful to me. By applying these concepts to your science fiction and fantasy projects, you can enrich the content of your words and deepen the quality of your writing. I hope I have encouraged you to think of using poetry as part of your writing process. Thank you for listening. Again, my name is Wendy Van Camp. I am a speculative poet, an author, and an editor of poetry anthologies. I'm also the poet laureate for the city of Anaheim in California, USA. You can find me at wendyvancamp.com.
Very pleasant morning to all dear participants and dignitaries. I would like to introduce myself. I am Dr. Ahilya Barure, Associate Professor, Department of English, Yashwantrao Chauhan College, Ambazogai, District Bid, from Maharashtra, India. First of all, I would like to welcome all on the digital platform for the International Conference on Science Fiction. I heartily congratulate all research scholars for their deep, insightful presentations on different topics and their research articles. I also express my sincere thanks to Honorable Dr. Srinarahari, Sir, and convener of the conference, Dr. Hemlata ma'am for giving me this opportunity to express my views and enjoy this intellectual feast. I feel proud to be a part of this sci-fi association with which I enjoy the new world. The world which is the world of ideas, history and future. Now, I specially congratulate Poet Laureate Wendy Van Camp for choosing very apt title, that is Every Word Matters. The title is like this: Every Word Matters, using poetry concepts to enrich your prose. Honorable poet has focused on the use of language in effective storytelling, which is a crucial part of prose writing. In that also, especially for science fiction writing. As word has many meanings as per the different situations, sometimes meaning changes, sometimes voice, tone, accent also changes the meaning of the same word. And it is mentioned by Wendy Camp in this research article. In the words that the poetry helps fiction or may create more layers which will be interesting and memorable. I would like to quote here a quote of Wallace Stevens. Wallace Stevens said, "All poetry is experimental poetry. Poems blur the line between speculations and really express expertise of reading poetry can even feel entering another world which will be helpful to science fiction." Title itself compelled to think about the words. How words are important cannot be known best rather than poet. Great Poet Laureate Van de Kamp's research paper is a part of this conference, and it is a proud moment for me to express view on the topic like word matters. It is a very different experience for me to share view on the Poet Laureate. The second paper which I read and I would like to share here is of the research scholar Karunakaran and the noble Jeba Kumar. They have explored the importance of learning management system in English language learning as a second language. As we know that LMS is such a platform providing wide range of language learning tools. When we speak about learning management system, it is observed that LMS is helpful to improve language proficiency, confidence, and motivation. This paper also explores the benefits of LMS in learning English as a second language. While using the LMS, the concept of blended learning arose. Blended learning nowadays has become the need of time. Students and teachers, in order to overcome the changed situation during COVID-19, adopted blended learning, and students continued this educational journey with the new technology and pedagogy. Blended learning has arisen as a new trend, or we can say the trend in educational system, which is very significant educational trend from the last 2 decades, and now it has become the dominant trend in educational system. There are mainly three reasons why we should use the LMS system. These three reasons are to implement the blended learning, teaching learning pedagogy, to increase access, to increase effectiveness. Language learning management system can unite English language learners throughout the world, and it also nurture the social aspects of the language. Then the next paper presenter, Dr. Amandeep Singh, has focused on post-humanist reading of the scientific fiction, which is very famous and published in 2021, Ishiguro's Clara and the Sun. Ishiguro has focused on the limitations of the programmed machines to decode the illusions and complexities of the human mind, and especially the emotional world. Novel Clara and the Sun had shown the current technologically saturated culture. Ishiguro's Clara and the Sun upholds a post-human perspective to foreground the essential differences between affective minds and emotional computing. I congratulate researcher for choosing recent science fiction needed to be discussed here. Very nicely, researcher has painted the post-humanist reading in this paper. Novel introduces artificial friends. As we know that nowadays robot is, or we can say robot has entered in some families as an artificial friend. And before concluding, I would like to express my sincere thanks to organizing committee for giving me this opportunity, and I am privileged to share view on such a great poet and research scholars just I mentioned on the different themes. Now I conclude with the words that modern inventions in science are changing the course of human life today. Science brought machines, although the comforts have increased. It is also seen that the conscience of man is breaking down and it destroys the balance of nature. Therefore, a threat has arisen to the very existence of man. In such cases, science fiction or science literature can be useful in promoting science knowledge and scientific approach. But the review and the research of the useful scientific literature still does not seem to take place on a large scale. On this occasion, we may hope this conference will do this noble work to some extent, and I would like to give best wishes to all participants and thank you once again the organizing committee. Thank you.
Hello everyone, this is S. Lavanya, Assistant Professor of English from Sri Sharda College for Women, Salem, Tamil Nadu, and I'm here to present my paper titled The Non-Human in Octavia Butler's Dawn. Whenever the name of Octavia Butler is uttered, right, the immediate theory or the immediate other term that comes to everybody's mind is, the concept of posthumanism, because she is an expert in dealing with the concept of posthumanism, and also she is one of the, she was one of the proponents of Afrofuturism. Now, coming back to the term, the post-humanism, various definitions are being discussed. Post-humanism is a critical theory, post-humanism as a practice. There are armchair academicians, activists, those who are trying to do. And, in simple terms, that could be defined as the relationship that exists between the human and the non-human. To be very particular, that which stresses that human is no longer the center of the universe, and human as a category has to coexist with other non-human forms in the world. So to be particular, I am using the definition that is given by Pramod K. Nair, a popular post-humanist theorist and a cultural studies theorist, and he says that human as a category is known for rationality, autonomy, and logical reasoning. But with the advent of post-humanism, the human is in a situation to share the space, the physical space, the emotional space, and space in general with other non-human forms. Donna Haraway, she talks about cyborgs in particular, and Catherine Hill, she talks about information, the knowledge that could be obtained from the systems. We are already together, and there is a possibility that she says that our human consciousness could be downloaded into a particular system, right? And with the advent of AIs, with the development, this does not seem far-fetched. So coming back, whenever Octavia Butler's works are researched, much of the concentration is placed on the concept of the post-humanism, post-humans, or the extraterrestrials. Now the work that I've taken for analysis is Dawn by Octavia Butler. And this is the first novel in the Xenogenesis series, which was later termed as Lilith's Brood. So Dawn, that was published in 1987. Lilith Iapo is the protagonist of the novel. So what is the story of this novel? An extraterrestrial race called the Onkali, they come and invade Earth. They do not exactly invade Earth. The setting is completely dystopian. The Earth is destroyed by the nuclear war, and the Onkali, they are there to save the remaining people. They put them in the cryogenic sleep and they help them, and the purpose is what they ask in exchange is a kind of trade. Let me be a partner with you. Let me allow you to get or prepare yourself to bear my young ones. There is a kind of a hybridity or a miscegenation, and gene trade is practically happening. So whenever Dawn is researched, much of the attention is thrown on this extraterrestrial part, the hybridity part, the miscegenation part. What happens when the protagonist Lilith Iapo is transformed? What are the powers that she gets? How she becomes a post-human? So what is the kind of the symbiosis that exists? So in this paper, I like to talk about particularly the non-human entity that is a kind of a vegetation, a plant. For the first instance, I would like to talk about, the very first novelty that comes in the novel is the Onkali, since they are extraterrestrial beings, they should have come from a ship, right? So their ship is a kind of a plant. It's not any technical, part. It's actually biological. It's biotechnological in nature. So what happens to this ship is it can feel, it can sense their emotions. It is hurt when they are hurt, and it is happy when the Onkali are happy. It reflects the emotions of the Onkali. So this is the first thing that comes to it. So the Onkali are very cautious not to hurt the ship or not to harm the ship, because the ship in turn takes care of the Onkali. It provides them with food, it provides them with water, it collects the toxic waste, and it disposes of properly, and it gives them air, and basically, so this very setting is totally different, and it could be observed in many of the science fiction films. Whenever an alien ship is given, the ship might be very large, and the ship is completely full of technological effects, outer thing and inner thing. Many, for example, the Independence Day and the Martian, the ship is entirely a physical entity, but in this case it's a biological entity. So I would like to quote this thing. See, another character, the Onkali Jadaya, he says that the ship is flesh, more like mine than like yours, different from mine too, though it's the ship. So the Jadaya, the Onkali, he's the one who trains Lilith, and he says that the ship is living organism. It is more like me, and it's less like you, right? And it is basically a very big entity that houses the Onkali, that houses the the surviving humans, all the cryogenic sleeping humans and everything, and it also helps to grow the plants and the vegetation and everything. So basically the ship is the most important part of the Onkali, the alien race. So I'd like to quote here, When she looked back the second time, the hole was closing and she could see that what she had come out was actually a huge tree. Her room could not have taken more than a tiny fraction of its interior. The tree had grown from what appeared to be ordinary, pale brown, sandy soil. Its lower limbs were heavily laden with the fruit. The rest of it looked almost ordinary except for its size. The trunk was bigger around than some of office buildings, she remembered, and it seemed to touch the ivory sky. How tall was it? How much of it was served as a building? So from this quote, I unquote, and from this thing it could be easily understood that the ship was very tall. It was an unimaginable height and nobody could actually measure other than the Onkali. And when Lilith sees it, she's unable to believe because she has seen ships and she has seen very larger structure, very larger building. So it's very difficult for her to believe. When a living organism is serving as a ship, when a living organism can be used as a cubicles, can be used as a soil to grow plants, can be used as a cage, and she's wondering about that. And the next thing is, and this is a continuation of the sort where everybody's cabin is made up of a ship. A hole is, generated, and it is, it's actually a tree. And the other thing is, the plants that grow in the ship, the plants that grow in the soil of the ship, they are very aware, they are very sensitive to the beings that come across, be it like animals, the Onkali, or the humans. I like to quote here, knee-high tufts of thick, fleshy leaves or tentacles grew from the soil. He stepped carefully to avoid them, which made her want to kick them. Only the fact that her feet were barely stopped her. Then she saw to her disgust that the leaves twisted or contracted out of the way if she stepped near one, like plants made up of snake-sized night crawlers. They seemed to be rooted to the ground. Did that make them plants? Lilith, when she's exploring the ship, she's still in the stage of believing that she's in the ship and the living entity she's walking on. So when she comes across the plants are paving the way for her. They are separating themselves and they are paving the way for her. And this is something totally different. And when she inquires about this to Jadaya, he simply says that we have genetically manipulated everything. Since they are basically genetic engineers, gene traders, it is mandatory for them to make everything change or manipulate something or an entity according to their usage. It is very part of the trade. It is very much in the blood. For this, Lilith says that humans used to do that to animals, right? Even during the time of the slavery, even during the time of the Nazi Germany, people used to experiment on other people as if they are as animals without any feelings. And Lilith says that, I don't see any difference in you treating these things to be mutable, to be genetically altered. But on the other hand, when you think of the way of the Onkali, the life of Onkali, they are basically gene traders. What they are now is not them for real. It is basically an accumulation of the various life forms they have inquired, right? If to be on a more practical sense, if humans are allowed to or open to mutation in search of other new worlds, if there is any condition for us to move from one world to another world, we would be doing the same. And it's it won't be it is not proper to judge the Onkali in this case. Another thing is, and the ship is actually both a plant and an animal. And another one, they are the kind of the animal. It's a kind of an animal they use for transportation, and it is also another slug snake like creature that transports them from one place to another place. And it also senses their emotions. It's also genetically mutated. It's called as telio, and it is also incorporating the emotions of the humans, and it moves accordingly, speeding up, speeding slowly, and taking them safely. It is actually called as telio, and it is basically a vehicle. It's a telio. I quote, "The thing we rode, it's an animal, a telio, did you know?" Right? I unquote. So they shaped telio from the larger creatures. They mutated telio from the larger creatures. Again, the play of mutation comes here. And as Foucault would say that it is completely biopolitics. It's a concept of biopower. And to borrow another term from Foucault, they are practically docile bodies. The Onkali are the higher part of the food chain, and they are at the very top, and they are in the power to do anything to the lower forms of life. Not that they are doing it for in a harmful way, that they are doing it in a beneficial way. And the next thing is, there is always a symbiotic relationship between the, ship and the Onkali, and the ship provides them with everything. And there is also, and to be particular, the humans are put in the cryogenic sleep. So they use a kind of a plant as a device, right? A biotechnological device to make humans sleep. It helps the humans retain their youth, their strength, and it provides them with the nutrition that is needed, that is while they are asleep. So to describe this plant, we have another quotation here. There are only a few, descriptions of the actual vegetation that's used here. See, I quote, before we found those plants, they used to capture living animals and keep them alive for a long while using carbon dioxide and supplying them with oxygen while slowly digesting non essential parts of their bodies, limbs, skins, sensory organs. The plants even pass some of their own substance through their prey to nourish the prey and keep it alive as long as possible. And the plants were enriched by the prey's waste products. They gave a very, very long death. I unquote. So it's basically a carnivorous plant. But what did the Onkali did was when they realized that humans are could be easily considered as a prey, they genetically altered the carnivorous plant. Now it is in a condition that it is going to absorb the waste products that's generated from the human bodies as their food, and it's not going to harm the humans at any rate, right? Yeah. So it helps them to sleep, to keep them in the suspended animation, and a kind of a foal order comes from that because it's a carnivorous plant. And apart from that, there is nothing harmful in the plant when it comes to it. And again, then we come across a very particular sensitive episode where the soil or the base of the ship is actually hurt by Lilith unintentionally. When Lilith, she doesn't want to eat an orange. I mean, she eats an orange and she wants to bury the outer covering of the orange. She digs a hole in the soil. I mean, in the ship, and she buries it. But ship is a living entity, and it is not comfortable, and it is not okay with something that is buried under because it is allergic to orange or something else has happened. So immediately the soil, it gets discolored, and there is a foul smell that is coming from it, and the soil is basically hurt. This is the beauty that Butler wants us to know, right? And this is a kind of another, the ecological post-humanism. You cannot divorce post-humanism from Octavia Butler in any sense, even when you're talking about the vegetation or the fauna. So I'd like to quote here, just a second. Yeah. The ground, I quote, the ground around the buried peelings began to darken. The color change recaptured her attention, and she watched as the soil slowly became mud and turned the same orange that the peelings had been. The soil began to smell, to stink in a way she found hard to connect with oranges. She had buried the outer coverings of the orange, but the soil, it has completely turned dark. What does it suggest? The soil is screaming, it's also expressing its feelings. The ship is basically expressing its feelings. It's not comfortable with what is buried, and it is showing that by how humans react to something allergic. You exhibit signs of fever, allergy. Similarly, the ship is also doing that. That is the beauty of the Butler. So again, I would like to bring attention to your point that whenever we talk about Butler, you talk about the post-human. That is from the human point of view. We do not pay attention to this particular entity as a vegetation or an animal, and some papers are there to talk about the ecological post-humanism. But to talk about this in particular, there are several instances, but these are some of the most instances where we get to know that the ship is a living entity, and it also demands care, and because it takes care of the Onkali, and the Onkali in turn they take care of the plant. That's basically pseudo trees, and the Onkali, they grow their own crops and own fruits and food products. So to conclude, everything is manipulated in the world of Onkali. Non-human things are completely manipulated, but not so in a harmful way, in a beneficial way. So what Butler suggests through this is there should be a kinship with all the things. Even the humans in the novel, they are made to form a kinship, a symbiotic relationship with all the other non-human forms, not particularly with the Onkali. And this is what is stressed by the Butler. And because it's the very design of the Onkali life, they are made to have a symbiotic relationship with other forms of life, be it human or non-human. And so again, plants, there is this concept, and some would even contest, as Rene Descartes would do, plants and animals do not have souls. It is still something to be explored. But here Butler suggests that plants do have souls. That is why she has projected or represented the ship as a living entity, as it exhibits the feelings. For want of time, I'd like to conclude here is the non-human representation, of the things in Octavia Butler's Dawn. They require special attention. The flora, the biological vegetation is alone something to be explored very separately, as something to be researched separately. So thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Amandeep Singh. Currently I am working as an assistant professor at Nirma University, Ahmedabad, Gujarat. I first of all want to thank Indian Association of Science Fiction Studies for giving me this opportunity to chair one of the sessions. As I specialize in science fiction, I know that how science fiction plays a very pivotal role actually in shaping the readers towards the future. And mainly it has taught us that what it really means to be human in a changing world of citizenship and globalization. Mainly, science fiction formulates a social world, bringing new perspectives that we can see throughout the conference, like posthumanism, artificial intelligence, alternative worlds, electricity, movies, and how they actually have inculcated our personality as well, even in ELT as well. It was a very good presentation by Miss S. Lavanya. Her paper titled The Non-Human in Octavia Butler's emphasizes very beautifully the post-humanistic aspect, especially as a critique of anthropocentrism. And the presentation was overall quite well conceived and organized and prepared. And the concept of non-human discussed by the presenter could have been more effective if discussed under the framework of ecological post-humanism, which has been emphasized by the presenter in the very beginning itself. Now, science fiction offers hundreds of instances which foregrounds the ethical movement, and a celebrated science fiction like Dawn by Octavia Butler explores this dynamic relation of ethics, alterity, and especially in the encounters with the alien other, allegories of our estrangement from ourselves actually. And the Xenosis trilogy mainly advocates the embracing difference via the concept of non-human and defamiliarization. The spaceship in the novel is more or less like the mothership actually, representing an alien nation, further heightening the theme of extraterrestrial or the non-human. Now, the presenter's use of terms like cryonics, experiments, genes, genetics, genetic engineering, extraterrestrial genes also give us a brief understanding about how science is actually portrayed in popular culture. So overall, the presentation was very good and interesting as well as engaging. Thank you. So it was a very short and crisp paper presentation by Mr. Shivam Sharma talking about transhuman and the brain computer interface on the silver screen or in movies, how they are portrayed. Now Mr. Shivam Sharma has presented very well in a very engaging way, but has not given much importance on the theoretical dimensions, which could have made his presentation better while talking about cyborg and the transhuman. And Mr. Shivam Sharma has demonstrated the major concepts like transhuman, cyborg, android, and AI consciousness quite well. And the concept of transhuman, I personally felt that should have been briefed or told about in the very beginning. The concept of transhuman or what is a transhuman should have been told in the very early stages. And how the adoption of AI and technological advancement gets obscured also sometimes in a movie actually, where there is no difference between the AI and the human being actually. And the way he communicated the theme of human robot interaction in the movie Attack was quite appealing to us, because it's something new. And the Mr. Shivam Sharma could have used an interesting analogy about how transhuman or cyborg is portrayed and perceived in Western culture, Japanese culture, and Indian narrative as well, thereby talking about the life of a transhuman or cyborg, which is mainly portrayed in films and television as well. While talking about contemporary visual culture in the context of science fiction genre, the presenter has also enriched his presentation by inculcating aspects like cinematic cyborg, a cinematic cybernetic point of view, self-reparation, mediated memories, or even digital memories as well, which has been shown in the movie Attack as well. And and he could have compared it with complex narratives in the West, or the effect of love, which plays a very important role in science fiction movies, as well as it makes us more human. And the way Mr. Shivam Sharma has showed how films treat science in popular culture has been quite well emphasized, especially from an Indian perspective. It was something new. So overall, it was good, but needed a theoretical framework and should have been discussed in depth actually, talking about the importance of AI and AI consciousness in particularly. apart from the plot line, which took more of a time in presentation. So thank you and all the best.
Ecocentric approach in English literature. Ecocentric study is a philosophy which places value and importance on the entire environment and all life in it. Man is not superior or inferior to nature but equal, and man has the power to control and make nature a suitable place for himself. Everything in this world works in a particular cycle. This is the belief of ecocentric view. Eco-criticism is a scrutiny of the world in general and the human habitat and the environment in particular, reveals the magnitude of the threat that humanity faces as all its activities to foster development in every possible area have started to boomerang in an alarming proportion. To guide us to examine the world around us and critiquing the mannerism of society in the treatment of nature, eco-criticism has emerged as literary theory that studies the relationship between literature and physical environment. Study of the literature and environment from an interdisciplinary point of view where literary scholars analyze text that illustrates environmental concerns and examine the various ways literature treats the subject of nature. Eco-critics consider many relations between literature and the natural world. William Rickett is believed to have coined the term eco-criticism in 1978, and he defined it as the application of ecology and ecological concepts to the study of literature. Joseph Maker is also the one, and in his early work, The Committee of Survivors, his studies in literary ecology used the term literary ecology to refer to study of biological themes and relationships which appear in literary works. It is simultaneously an attempt to discover what roles have been played by literature in ecology and the human species. Talking about literature, it is an expression of human feelings, thoughts, and ideas whose medium is language, oral, or written. And it represents human ideas, thoughts, and also the experiences of author. Mostly it refers to work of poetry, theatre, or narrative that are especially well written. A literature is a product of life, a raw material for any piece of literature, say poetry, novel, essay, drama, and the raw material for them is always furnished by life. It is an expression of life and it cannot be separated by nature, it cannot be untouched by nature. Mythology and nature. When natural phenomena could not be explained by science, mythology that enables human harmony and relations with nature, it became a means of explaining obscurities. People were able to explain the events of nature by establishing similarities with their own actions. Nature is worshipped in mythology. Nature was used in mythical works to show God's anger, blessings through natural powers of drought, thunder, lightning, etc. And poets also gave it an expression in their works to show man's relation with nature. In Greek mythology, nature and mankind have been intertwined since the first story was handed down in ancient Greek. Greeks believed that when humans were created, nature was devoid of hardships. Nature writing, many writers write about nature. Nature writing is non fiction or fiction, prose, or poetry about the natural environment. Nature writing encompasses a wide variety of works: natural history, essay, poetry, essay of solitude or escape, as well as travel and adventure writing. Nature writing often draws heavily on scientific information and facts about the natural world and mostly written in first person. Writers use nature to create a mood or provide a setting that provides some symbolic meaning to the action or the characters, and for many other reasons. Romanticism and depiction of nature in poetry. Romanticism is a movement spanning roughly from 1719 to 1850, and it was characterized by a celebration of nature and the common man was one of the leading themes of it. In Romanticism, People and nature were objectified and reduced to commodity status. According to the Romantics, the solution was seen as pure and spiritual source of renewal. Awe of nature, which is a mix of fear and respect towards nature, was one of the themes of Romantic writers. The Romantic poets felt that man's internal life and the external and the natural world had a lot in common. The nature and human lives can be mysterious, open and vast, wild and free, and sometimes terrifying. Poets like William Butler Yeats, Frost, Robert are some of the major poets who can be considered the writers of egocentric studies. Especially Wordsworth's view towards nature and man's treatment of nature has supported his position as an important icon of ecocentric studies. He viewed nature superior to human beings. He believed that the company of nature gives joy to the human heart, and he looked upon nature as exercising a healing influence on grief stricken hearts. He believed that nature is capable of elevating the tormented mind of man. If we talk about one of his poems, lines written in early spring, he says, I heard a thousand blended notes while in a grove I sat reclined in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts uh, bring the thoughts, sad thoughts to my mind. So he's talking about his experience when he was sitting under a grove and he was very happy to see the nature over there, the natural scene over there. Suddenly he became very sad. So he saw that everything in nature, like birds, flowers, and everything, they were enjoying their existence, but why man is not able to enjoy his life? So, in Wordsworth poetry, interacting with nature represents the forces of natural world. Here he describes that know how humanity failed to follow nature's peaceful example, the joy he perceives in natural world, and the belief that his soul is also intimately connected to that joy leads him to mourn what man has made of man. The cruelty, the selfishness of human beings is highlighted here, and the poem argues that while humans are the part of nature, they don't like it and they don't follow the holy plan of the nature, where nature wants everything to be happy. They separate themselves both from the nature and the natural world. So he laments that what man has made of man. So in this way, he is talking here about the nature and the human beings, that why human beings are not happy, what has a man made of himself. So another poem, the world is too much with us, late and soon getting and spending, we lay waste our hours, little we see in nature that is ours. So in this poem, the world is too much with us. He is talking again about the human beings, that how they are wasting their time and energy in getting and spending, and they are not paying attention to the nature. They are not cherishing the nature which is ours. William Butler it's his poem, The Lake Isles of Innisfree. In this poem, he has a longing, a desire to go to that place where he had once spent his childhood. So he wants to go to that lake isle of Innisfree. He emphasized the importance of nature to an individual's intellectual and spiritual development. A good relationship with nature helps individual connect to both spiritual and the social worlds. In the present poem, he is nostalgic about the beautiful places where he spent his childhood days. He longs to go back to that place again, and he can still feel the sound of the water lapping against the shore of the Isle of Innisfree, and he has a desire to go back to that place, and he wants to spend his life in the lap of nature there. Now, anthropocentric view, if we talk about this view, it considers human beings as the most significant entity of the universe, and it gives more importance to human beings than nature. While ecocentrism includes all living beings, an anthropocentric mindset predicts a moral obligation only towards other human beings. It does not give importance to nature. So here is a poem by Robert Frost, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. In this poem, he says, while he was going through a very beautiful place, there was snow in that forest. He wanted to spend some time there and wanted to enjoy the nature, but he has some obligations, some duties to fulfill, and he says that I'm not able to enjoy this beautiful sight of nature, but I have so many things to do. I have miles to go before I sleep. So he again he here talks about his horse, that his horse might be very surprised at why his master has stopped in such a place where there is nothing but snow everywhere, although poets want to enjoy that sight, but he has some duties. So, on the surface reading, it appears to be simple, descriptive record of close, minute observation, a series of homely but vivid pictures. But on a critical scrutiny of the poem, layers of meaning unfolds before us. The poem achieves its climax of responsibility in the last stanza. Uh, the promises to be kept and the obligations to be fulfilled. Through personal experiences, the poet expresses a universal conflict felt by every sensitive individual. On the other hand, there is the beauty of nature which can be enjoyed by remaining away from the day to day mundane life. But the condition of modern man is that he cannot do so, even though he wishes to do so. So, egocentric ego-critics considers many relations between literature and nature and natural world, although its scope has broadened from nature writing, romantic poetry, and canonical literature to take in films, televisions, theaters, animal stories, architecture, scientific narratives, and an extraordinary range of literary texts. At the same time, eco criticism has borrowed methodologies and theoretically informed approaches liberally from other fields of literary, social, and scientific study. The materialistic and anthropocentric ideology overpowers all the aesthetic and sensible tendency of human beings. The appreciation of nature requires a man to be idealistic and ecocentric. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Sadullah Khan, and right now I'm working at Amity School of Communication, Amity University, Rajasthan, Jaipur. I was asked to provide my observation on a research paper titled Ecocentric Approach in English Literature, submitted to the conference by Ms. Reema Kumari, who is working as assistant professor at Government Arya Degree College at Himachal Pradesh. My observation is primarily on the basis of abstract, as the conference secretaries has provided me that only. Definitely, eco-criticism or ecocentrism is a specially recognized discourse in the field of literature as it studies the connection between the nature and literature. The human being is an element of nature. Literature and art influence human life. Human life too influence the art and literature. Ecocentric approach redefines our relationship with the environment and literature. It identifies the roots of the problem of the environment, as well as it also tries to explore the ecological crisis in the relationship of the society with nature, and also tries to find a uniformity and amalgamation among them. Eco-critical writings range from cultural histories of human ecological entanglements to critical analysis of the meanings of such terms as human and nature. With its origin paralleling the birth of modern environmentalist politics, eco-criticism produces historical and theoretical models that engage the rising tide of ecological awareness in 21st century. Sub-discourses within the field explore environmental justice, gender, ethics, economic development, and the global south. Various articulations of critical theory, the relationship between the sciences and humanities, and multiple versions of activist politics. Eco criticism collectively brings the tools and methods of humanities to bear on urgent questions for today's age of global ecological crisis, often combining creative or non traditional forms with estranged research methods. Eco critics, or rather ecocentrists, invent ways to use the humanities, or rather, more specifically, literature, to engage our rapidly changing environment. This discourse represents an attempt by the humanities scholarship to come to terms with a rapidly changing world. As far as the concerned abstract is concerned, although the paper ought to be exploring elements of ecocentrism in English literature, it must definitely contain the chosen sample of study as well as methodology undertaken by the researcher to further expand the discourse. Also, a small hint regarding possible outcome will be really appreciated. In the end, I wish the paper presenter all the very best for her future endeavors. Thank you.
Greetings to respectable organizers. This is Dr. Jayashree, Assistant Professor in the Department of English, presently posted at Government Degree College, Chamba, Himachal Pradesh. So today I'm going to present my topic on Amitabh Ghos's The Calcutta Chromosome, a post-colonial science fiction. Amitabh Ghos's The Calcutta Chromosome, a novel of fevers, delirium and discovery, takes our readers on a wondrous journey through time, space and history. The novel was recipient of the Arthur C. Clarke Award in 1997. The Calcutta Chromosome, for the most part set in Calcutta at some unspecified time in the future, is a medical thriller that dramatizes the adventures of apparently disconnected people who are brought together by a mysterious turn of events. The novel is loosely based on the life and times of the Nobel laureate Sir Ronald Ross, who discovered malaria parasite in 1898. Ghosh tries to rewrite the Western medical history by focusing upon the intuitive insights of the subalterns of India and provides the possibility of an alternative subaltern history. Murugan, the researcher in the Calcutta chromosome, is convinced that their history has been conveniently erased from the scribbled records of Western medical science to instate Dr. Ronald Ross on the pedestal of glory. The concentric plots in the novel give vivid effect to the meaning. It is an attempt to impose patterns on experience. Ghosh has unwrapped the variety of characters and their lives, whether they belong to the contemporary society or to the 19th century. Uncertainties of day to day life are Ghosh's main concern in his novels. Here, in Calcutta Chromosome, Ghosh voices living uncertainties because abstinence permeates all over. There is hardly anything which has continuity, and the writer is of the view to know something is to change it. The subtitles of the text, a novel of fever, delirium, and discovery, and the day after, and the opening lyrics penned by Ronald Rose all contribute to the mysterious atmosphere bestowed upon the quasi scientific thriller, as they suggest or bespeak of disease, epidemic, catastrophe, invention, and warnings. In other words, it is an unstable world that seems to be doomed to chaos and simultaneously manipulated by secret powers. The two worlds of science and the counter-science, European rationality and Indian mythos, are brought together against the backdrop of Calcutta streets and monuments. In so doing, the writer is also attempting to read reality. The story begins when Anthar, a computer programmer in New York, comes across a damaged ID card on his computer hour. The card is plastic laminate and wrapped and melted along the edges. The card belongs to Murugan.
Namaskara. I am Dr. Santosha GK. I am from VSK University, Ballari, Karnataka. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to be part of this international online conference. So I'm very thankful to Professor Narahari sir, who is my teacher, guide, and everything. I'm happy for this conference because it is not only online conference, it is also pre-recorded video based conference. Perhaps I have seen very few in the world these kind of conferences have been happened and have been happening. And I also thank to Miss Hemalata, who is the organizing secretary of this conference. And coming back to my important assignment of this conferences, I have gone through the papers and videos of Dr. Jayashree, and she has written a article and she also sent me the recorded video on post-colonial science fiction. And I'm happy that Dr. Jayashree mainly focuses on Amita Ghosh's important work, Calcutta Chromograph, which is a science fiction. Mainly deals with malaria. Of course, uh, India once upon a time was the center of malaria. So when our colonial rulers, particularly British, came to India, they were scared of malaria disease. I still remember when I recently visited England. So one of the important tests we have to carry from India is our malaria test. So they were literally scared. And it is nice that uh, Sir Ronald Rose, who invented the medicine for this malaria. Of course, this novel mainly speaks about Ronald Rose's contribution to the medical science, particularly the treatment of malaria. But here in this novel, uh, as Jayashree, as Dr. Jayashree grapples with the idea of deconstructing the history, as Amita Ghosh also mainly focuses on history, particularly oral history and anthropology and social history. I think we are all aware how Amita Ghosh is a good traveler. After he educated from St. Stephen College, Delhi, he went to Oxford to do his PhD on social anthropology. So he is being an anthropologist and very good traveler. He exclusive travel on the globe, and his writings focus on his traveling. If I want to give one of the example, is in an antique land. He also focuses on the traditional and oral history of Mangalore. So he reconstruct, not particularly reconstruct, but he reconstruct the history, and he visits. He mainly focuses on the anthropological way of narrating the history. And in this particular novel, he also, as Dr. JSC focuses on, analyzes the historical narratives and oral narratives that of the malaria invention. So, according to Amita Ghosh and the observation of Dr. Jayashree, she mainly focuses on how Dr. Ronald Rose could able to could able to find out the medicine because of there was a group of people uh, in Calcutta who supported him. So Dr. Jayashree also tries to relocate the constructed history of the medical science, where Sir Ronald Ross, who invented the medicine, is not only because of his effort, but it also because of group of young people who are associated in terms of inventing the sources. Because when we acknowledging particular achievements, there is a huge politics beyond that, especially when it comes to when it comes to any kind of award. So it is based on the committee's review, and these reviews are prejudiced sometime, or sometime they are politicized. So here Amita Ghosh beautifully reinvented the uh, oral history or the past history beyond this malaria's medications. And I'm happy Jayashree could able to do this very beautifully, and she has done exceptionally very well in her presentation. So since it is a brief presentation, I congratulate Dr. Jayashree for her wonderful presentation on this. And I have a few suggestions and two questions to her. So when you write next time, I kindly advise you to use other Indian medical fictions which you can use as a reference. Then only your paper will be more strengthened. But still, you have written a wonderful paper. You have written a wonderful paper. And very all the best to you. And thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. Thank you.
Greetings, good afternoon, and namaste to all my fellow science fiction writers from all over India and the world who are attending this conference of IASFS. Let me introduce myself as Dr. Madhu Chittaru, MD, as a consultant physician and diabetologist and clinical cardiologist practicing in Hyderabad, Telangana, India for the last 3 decades. I am also having an aptitude for writing, and I have been writing science fiction, especially medical thrillers, and with the background of cardiology and diabetes, and also space fiction novels for the last 3 decades. Before I talk about my experiments with science fiction, I thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity, and also let me tell you about the novels which I published. These are the covers of the novels in English which I published. They are called War for Mars trilogy. War for Mars, a story of the fourth millennium, Blue and Green, Return to Earth, Dark Outpost, The Final Revenge. This is a space opera trilogy based in the future 3465 AD, published in Amazon and available on Amazon.in platform as ebooks and also paperbacks. This I have written during the period 2002-2016. This is AI which draws painting on our description of characters. The future of artificial intelligence is wonderful and breathtaking, and especially for science fiction writers like me. This is a diagram which has been written, drawn by the AI chatbot Wonder, and I described it, my character Karishma, a humanoid robot who comes to city searching for a human being and loves him, and this is the diagram I got. And about the other Telugu novels which I have written nearly 10 novels in Telugu and one health education book, and this is ICCU, a cardiac care unit based novel, intensive coronary care unit. The background is that of intensive care unit, and it is a medical thriller, and it was followed by Polonia, a space fiction thriller, and the epidemic. It is the last one of the medical science fiction trilogy which were written in Telugu and published, and of these 2 novels were translated in Kannada also and published in Uthana Monthly and also as books. I have also written other novels with background of internet and also with background of diabetes. I also published recently Jet Science Fiction and Other Stories, which is an anthology of science fiction. The definition of science fiction: Asimov said, reactions of human beings to changes in science and technology. Robert Heinlein, realistic speculation on possible future events based solidly on the science of present, past, and a thorough understanding of the scientific method. Science fiction contains many genres and difficult to define in any particular form. Science fiction can be also classified as a genre of speculative fiction. Speculative because all the theories are not exactly proved, like time travel and other things, but some are proved. So there is a lot of speculation involved in this, like parallel universes, advanced technologies. So it is a genre of speculative fiction, which deals with space exploration, interplanetary travel, time travel, robots, and various future advanced technologies based on present-day science. So there are many definitions, and so it changes with the concept of present-day science and expects the changes in the future. The subtypes are science fantasy, superhero fiction, cyberpunk, military sci-fi, spice opera, parallel universe, alternative history, dystopian stories. All are subgenres. Everyone has his own definition, so let us accept Mr. Damon's view that if you read a work and feel that it is science fiction, it is science fiction. People ask me why I wrote science fiction and why I took it up and why not romantic or other social novels. First, I was also writing short stories in my student days, and later when I went to Algeria in a deputation by the government of India as a medical specialist and worked there for a decade, I lost touch with my Telugu literary field, and I found that And coming back, novels based on horror, superstition, exorcism, such novels were becoming very popular in Telugu literature and readers were liking them. Then the idea came to me, why not create science fiction really based on medical science and create a thriller? Like that, I decided to write ICCU in 1990 as while I was working as a junior consultant in a hospital medical and cardiac department. The climate in intensive coronary unit was taken up, and a criminal doctor who places devices called pacemakers in the patients, it influencing not only their hearts but also their minds and makes them do errands for him and controls their minds and does nefarious activities like robberies, etc. The up to pacemaker and the heart block and intensive coronary care unit, it was science, but the other part is fiction. ICCU was serialized in Andhra Prabha Weekly and was received well, and it was described as an explosion of medical and cardiac knowledge. It was translated into Kannada also by C. Ramaswamy and serialized in Uthana magazine, and it was also published as a book. The problems were the reader said there were too many technical medical words. The second was by Polonia. It was also basically medical but included extraterrestrial characters, time travel, and the same villain doctor manipulating them with drugs. It was a bold attempt, not done before in Telugu by Polonia, and it had received good reviews, including one in the prestigious The Hindu by Srimati Ambika Anand, a famous poet and bilingual author. The third one was Epidemic. It describes a viral pandemic in Hyderabad created by the villain doctor who was selling virus aerosols and inadvertently causes an epidemic, causing a lot of disaster. The good hero doctors will investigate the index case to his laboratory and catch him, and the extraterrestrials under the leadership of Hora the Time Lord come and expose the villain's evil deeds and again banish him to the time prison. Later I wrote a space opera in English. A space opera means it has got a description of war between future galactic empires, some romantic descriptions and description of universal force, etc. And one example is Star Wars series, and I wrote a space opera in the Indian context, and it was called War for Mars. I wanted to write in English because I wanted to see how I can be received in the English literature, and futuristic era timed in 3465 AD, and with all the qualities of this space opera, I have created this trilogy. It was set in future, and it is a story of Hani Amrapali who travels to Mars in search of a dream girl Sayoni, and later he was imprisoned by the wizard emperor Samurai in Mars, and he gets superpowers and he is involved in Operation Immortality, fetching portion of immortality for the emperor Samura, and there is a war between human colony in Mars and the Red Plains, the wizard colony in Mars. The novel was published by Sampark Publishers. The theme of War for Mars trilogy is fantasy, speculation, and from wizard colony description, realistic in human colony description, dome-shaped colonies, water from polar areas, and travel by rovercrafts. Wizards have universal force, which would be a new entity of force in future. That was my imagination. The second book was Blue and Green Return to Earth, and Samura follows Hani Amrapali to the hero to Earth, and he is in search of magical object hidden in the Bhairav temple, which is a silver candle. And he comes to a space elevator. I have described the space elevator which connects the moon and the earth for travel to save the cost of the rockets. But of course, it is an abandoned space elevator in this book. And the good wizards also I described who are doing good things like creating rains and other things. And Hani's parents were good wizards, and evil wizard Samura actually blackmails the good wizards to do work for him, and he kills Hani's parents. Hani Amrapali would like to take revenge on Emperor Samura, and so on, and the story goes on. The third book was Dark Outpost. It takes place in search of the magical objects hidden in planets of solar system. Hani Amrapali is designed by the Earth Council to trace Samura, but he becomes a victim of Samura and he is blackmailed to search the magical objects on all the solar system planets, starting from Moon to Titan to Ganymede and to floating colonies of Venus and Triton, the planet of the satellite of Neptune. So finally, the Emperor Samura captures all the magical objects and occupies the solar system and creates a wizard empire. And Hani Amrapali and his wife Prakriti Amrapali join the Earth resistance and fight him. In this, I describe the dystopian Earth ruled by wizards and human resistance. Hani Amrapali helping resistance, immortal Samura being killed by the information in prophecy hidden in the Triton satellite of Neptune and Pluto, and sacrificed by Prakriti to kill, destroy the evil Emperor Samura in a suicide mission in the final revenge book. Having described the outlines of my stories and novels, as our moderator and chairman requested, what are the problems in creating sci-fi I faced were technical words in regional languages were difficult to create and translate from English. And when I myself translated my 3 English novels into Telugu with many technical words, I found this problem. My Telugu novels of the space opera were Kududi Kosam, Neeli Akapacha and Bhumi Nunchi Pluto Daka, 3 Telugu novels, and they had a moderate to good success and recognition as a good science fiction novels, and I acknowledge poor reception by readers for my English novels, but good reception in Telugu also. And from the translation from English to Telugu and creating words like satellites, interplanetary travel, such terminology is a problem in creating science fiction. Also, recently I took up short stories of science fiction. This is called Jet Science Fiction, and some other stories published in 2019. Themes on zombies, parallel universes, time travel, time loop, ghosts and Mars travel, etc. I also wrote stories recently after publishing this book about climate change in a story called 2 Degrees, driverless cars, robots, animal robots, robotic uprising, pandemics and dystopian future, and earth-based science fiction is the name of such genre of science fiction, and the future changes in the world of humans have been described in these stories. This is soon to be published by the end of the year, hopefully. My experiments, or I have with difficulty created and published in spite of discouragement from publishers and editors, and created trilogy sequels both in English and Telugu. There were poor sales in English as well as in Telugu, and generally lack of appreciation for sci-fi generally in Telugu. Scientific terminology in Telugu has to be created afresh, and there is also a lack of translation of my novels or others' novels into our languages, so that for a writer of science fiction, the all India recognition is being difficult, and it should improve in future. That is what I feel. There is in the history of science fiction in Telugu, there are 4 phases from 1920. There are some writers who have written. The first novel was written around 1920, Paramanuvulo Mejuvani, a story which takes place inside an atom, and very few till 1950. And Vihangayanam was the first novel in Telugu. We have to remember those people who have written, like Tekumala Rajgopal Rao, and some popular writers like Ennavuri Virendranath wrote novels like Yugantam, and we have to remember writers like K.R.K. Mohan, N.R. Nandi, Purana Panda, Malladi, Ganti Bhanumati Garu, Poduli Krishna Kumari, and very notable among them recently K. Sadasiva Rao, who has written world-class science fiction stories and novels in Telugu. Modern novels in 1970 to 90 have been published to some extent, and some medical novels were also published by writers. And in the very modern era, that is after 2000, there were very few who have been writing in science fiction. I do not know why in Telugu, and only myself, Dr. Madhu Chittaru, and Kasturi Murali Krishna, another prolific writer in all genres of fiction, and Salim, a Sahitya Academy winner garu, and these people were writing consistently science fiction in the last 2 decades. And we have to acknowledge the contribution by Professor Vemuri Venkateswara garu and Anil S. Royal of USA, who have written many science uh, fiction stories and published anthologies. And my place, I have gratitude in acknowledging that I am now recognized as a sci-fi writer in Telugu language, and in spite of writing other books also. And I am trying to popularize science fiction by articles, stories, and workshops, and still a lot has to be done. Participating in international forums and global writers meetings, I have been talking about science fiction and my work, and I am doing my bit in the popularization of science fiction in Telugu. Of course, my experiments were description of time travel, tachyon systems taken from Asimov. I described laser guns, rays, and weapons, and medical equipment like pacemakers being used as brainwashing weapons, etc. And use of virus aerosols as bioterrorism or black market sales of these virus aerosols to get profit. I have written about climate change, global warming, and memory transplants in a story called Mudojanma, and replication of dead wife as a humanoid robot in a story called Manaswini, and robotic servants, robotic animals like robot dogs being used by humans to guard their properties, and emotions in robots like in a story called Ruby I Love You and Nagaramlo Maramanavi, describing the robotic uprising and emotions in robots. Of course, there are problems in Telugu scene. There is not much receptive audience, and some criticism is there about the social benefit, and there is more attraction for the mythology-based science fiction, like example of Shiva trilogy or Meluha trilogies, etc. But and also lack of good income to the writers by way of sales for novels. Only dedication for the genre keeps me going, and glad to see good output, more output than in our language in Kannada, Marathi, Tamil, and Hindi. The future scope is definitely is there, and there are many successful Hollywood films being made, earning millions of dollars, like Avatar and Matrix, such films, and why not in Indian languages and Hindi, and I think like that. And we can include mythology, like mythological characters like Hanuman, and the drugs like portions of immortality like Amrita, planes like Pushpak, which are like science fiction descriptions. The success of real science fiction depends on the reader's educational caliber and interest. The future, most writers must take up science fiction, I feel, because there is definitely a social value also, because it builds up our character, how to face a disaster, how to face extraterrestrials, how to face environmental disasters, how to face artificial intelligence when it controls us, and how to act and protect our rights in dystopian political climates, and how to prevent global warming and climate changes. Like that, science fiction has a good scope in the future. And I thank you for patient listening, and I thank the organizers, especially Mr. Narahari, the organizing secretary, and all other organizers of this conference for giving me the opportunity to talk about my experiments in science fiction. Namaste.
Today, I will talk about immortality in science fiction. In Puranas, the older man becomes young, as in Samrat Yayati in Mahabharata. I have also wrote a science fiction, Fireki Yayati. It is a novel, and in which an old man or old scientist who is at the verge of death and was doing or research on antimatter becomes young again by the process of cloning. And in this way, he has achieved immortality in one sense, though he is not achieved in the sense that immortality. And he did it by the process of cloning. Longevity is another phenomena. Longevity is achieved in Manis Montgomery's science fiction, 325 years old man. A man or protagonist achieves the longevity by the process of the anabolism. Immortality has been also achieved in the science fiction Kailash Saha's Mrityunjay. And astronomers go to a planet where aliens have achieved immortality. But in Mrityunjay, immortality is a curse. In Dr. Sampurnanand's novelette, Prithvi to Saptarshi Mandal Tak, or from the Earth to Ursa Minor, the inhabitants of an planet have achieved immortality. In mythology, we also find the phenomena of sex change. In Mahabharata, you know it very well that Sikhandini changes her sex and becomes Sikhandi. In the battle of the Mahabharati, she appeared as Sikhandi and shot an arrow on Bhishma Pitama. That was a very fatal shaft. Similarly, through the favor of two deities, Varun and Mitra, Ila changed her sex and become male from female, and the male is known as Sudyumna. In Dr. Rajiv Ranjan Upadhyay's story, Ek or Sikhandi or another Sikhandi, the female or woman, Kiran, changes her sex and becomes a male or Kiran Kumar, taking hormonal therapy. In each another story, Parivartan is also based on sex transformation. Owing to the dropping of the waste products in the water becomes polluted and the alligators in the water change their sex. In Indian mythology, another phenomena is invisibility. Demons, gods, and goddesses become invisible at will. In Amit Kumar's science fiction, Adrasya Manav or invisible man, the protagonist becomes invisible by harnessing reflection of the light, and does bank robbery. In my science fiction, the war with the aliens, to save themselves from aliens, Harvard and Angela disappear wearing a cloak with the nanopin set in its according to the complex mathematical equation that allows the rays to bend in such a way that a man become invisible. The scientist Vladimir Salo of the Purdue University invented this complicated equation to make a man invisible. In mythology, goddesses, demons, and asuras causes maya or illusion, which is very common in science fiction also. Aliens create illusion. In Ramayana, you know it very well that Meghnath and other demons play maya or illusion. In science fiction, Abhikatat Vyas Ascharya Vritant, illusion he started his story by using a saying or with a slok or hymn. The meaning of the hymn or slok in itself is that the world is illusion. Kalpana Kursresth uses in science fiction, Kalpana Kursresth uses in science fiction illusion. In the science fiction, back to sky. People residing in the space station thinks that their world is a soul world. But when they knew that they arrived from the earth and their origin is earth, they go into the depression. Pragya Gautam's story, Alokik or divine, when the protagonist meet a saint or hermit in the Himalaya who has achieved Siddhi, he told that he could contact with the aliens, and upon contacting, the aliens said that we have created life on the earth or originate life on the earth, and the people on the earth, and people thinks themselves and live in a illusion that they originate on the earth. In science fiction, you know about the generation shifts, and in generation shifts, when the astronomers travels, they feel that over a long time they feel that their world is the sole world. They do not feel that they were traveling in any spaceship or generation ship, and forget that they have come from earth. And their world and their progeny or the following generation believes that their world is the real world. Aliens appear as ghosts, as in my novel Aliens and Escaped Humanity, and also in Sebastian Lecheraj's science fiction Robinoids. Now we can create scientifically also illusion, and illusion can be created in metaverse, or we can do teleporting, and people can feel that their world is the real world, while they forget for some time that their world is not real but is an illusion. The phenomena is also called holoteleporting, or in another sense, in another word, hologram and teleportation.
Hello, myself Dr. Sonali Santosh Kadam, Associate Professor in Botany from R.P. Gokte and R.V. Jogekar College, Ratnagiri, Maharashtra. The name of my story is RNA Pro in 2040. It was a sunny day when the RNA family had a get together along with ChatGPT 4 AI Pro for their successful and stain free functioning in the cell. RNA recalled the situation in the cell when the AI was not active with the cell. The RNA remembered those short day period in the month of December 2000 when the entire cell was upset, as it was the misconception of cell that its new generation was not following his traits due to the misbehavior of RNA family. In cell, RNA family had three main members such as mRNA, tRNA and rRNA. The RNAs were sheltered in the nucleus by cell itself. Actually, it was miscommunication, and the cell was thinking that the RNA get unconsciously synthesized in the nucleus and cell ignored it as they were working for cell's benefit. It was perception of cell that the DNA originated within the cell when cell was born. DNA must be the permanent member of the cell, as it was calmly working for the inheritance of characters. But RNA was the outsider. Oh, is it? Cell could not decide its relation with RNA, as RNA family had equal importance in the cell due to their humble functioning. It was DNA who synthesized different types of RNAs with the help of enzyme RNA polymerase. These RNAs get synthesized at different locations with the help of separate RNA polymerase enzyme and started the factory of protein synthesis.
Hi everybody, my name is Dr. Vasudeva. Currently I'm working as Associate Director at Pure Software Private Limited, where I'm leading a group of application scientists and IT guys, and I basically look into digitalization and automation of laboratory activities. So we are here to conclude the session on one of the science stories presented by Professor Sonali. So this is with reference to RNA Pro in 2040. And thanks, Sonali, for a very nice and exciting talk. And basically, I would like to take you through some of the details that Sonali discussed. So before actually entering into the conclusion part, I would like to give you a brief information or introduction to what DNA does, what exactly RNA does. So we as human beings or eukaryotes have millions and millions of cells. In every cell, we have DNA, which is deoxyribose nucleic acid. So this DNA sits inside the nucleus of the cell. And you can call this DNA as the central machinery that controls the entire activity of the cell. So now a question comes as to how this DNA regulates the activities of the cell. DNA basically produces three major types of RNAs or ribosomal RNAs or ribose nucleic acid. We have messenger RNA or mRNA, we have transfer RNA or tRNA, and we have rRNA or ribosomal RNA. So the message that is present in DNA is basically copied onto mRNA or messenger RNA, and messenger RNA, after getting synthesized, goes out of the nucleus, and with the help of other cellular machinery, it synthesizes proteins, enzymes. So these proteins and enzymes in turn control various activities of the cell. So I can say that DNA produces RNA, RNA with the help of other cellular mechanism produces proteins and enzymes required for controlling the activities of the cell. So in this story, what happens is basically the cell starts feeling that its next generation is not having its characteristic features. So they are behaving differently and the cells get worried. Because if the cell do not behave, as per the instruction, then it leads to various disorders. And that's why the cell gets worried and then it calls for a kind of investigation. It asks the DNA as to what is wrong. Then DNA also starts thinking there could be something that has gone wrong in the cells. That's why the cells are misbehaving or it is not behaving as expected. Then DNA also initially thinks it is the RNA or ribose nucleic acid which is responsible, but later on defends the RNA group and says to the cell that it need not just be RNA which is responsible for the misbehavior of the cells. It says that it could be due to pesticides, it could be due to other drugs that we take, it could be due to many other chemicals that are there in the environment. If the cells are exposed to such different compounds, then the cells start misbehaving. But at the same time, RNA, gets worried about the blame that it has got. So before stepping further, so I would like to just give you information that DNA is also called gene. And DNA transfers its message to RNA or mRNA, and from mRNA, the protein gets synthesized. And if there is a change in the DNA sequence, and that change also gets copied onto mRNA, and the final protein or enzyme that is produced will also be defective, or it will not follow what it has to actually follow. This might lead to disease, or this might lead to erratic behavior of the cells. So any change that occurs in the sequence of DNA is called mutation. So this mutation or changes in the DNA can lead to disease. So it can sometimes be beneficial to the cells. But the basic mechanism is DNA should transfer all its message to mRNA, and mRNA produces proteins and enzymes with the help of other cellular mechanisms or machineries. Now, the RNA is a bit worried about the blame that it has got. And it starts thinking, what is the reason for it? And the simple answer is, if there is a mechanism by which the changes can be stopped at the DNA level itself, then it would be easy for mRNA to carry the information. But how to do this? If the changes or the mutation that are happening in DNA can be rectified at the DNA level itself, then the message copied onto mRNA will be good and the protein synthesized will be good. But we do have some mechanisms inside the cell, but in spite of that, sometimes it so happens that wrong proteins are produced. Now, RNA in this science fiction or in this story presented by Dr. Sonali just Googles or searches in Google and then decides to take the help of ChatGPT. And this story is talking about a situation in 2040. And by that time, the author imagines that the ChatGPT will be ChatGPT Artificial Intelligence 4 or ChatGPT 4. So the RNA decides to take the help of ChatGPT 4 and it forms a union or association with ChatGPT 4. So with the help of these two, the changes that are happening at the DNA level are sensed, and any changes that are happening are rectified there and then. So this simply means, to put the story or to cut the story short, RNA with the help of ChatGPT-4 is now helping the DNA to, help the DNA in identifying the changes and rectifying the changes back to its original sequence. So if there are no bad changes that happen in DNA, then proper message is copied onto mRNA and mRNA will produce proper proteins. So this association between RNA and ChatGPT-4 itself is quite exciting. And Dr. Sonali talks about this. And if there is something like this, that is a proofreading mechanism that happens at the cellular level itself, then many of the diseases could be controlled. But we should also remember that this is a story that we are talking about, which is based on the science, right? And what basically happens is all the facts that we are seeing today are the scientific discoveries. They started with a particular hypothesis. Even here, if you look at as a scientist, it is easy to do. Just, have a combination of RNA and ChatGPT-4 or any such mechanism that will sense the change in DNA and have some machinery to rectify at the level where the changes are happening. So if the changes can be rectified at the level where the changes are happening, then the cells will start functioning normally. The story talks about this, and a combination of RNA and ChatGPT is what this story visualizes in 2040. And of course, we have a lot of questions and whether this is possible or not possible, but we should respect the technology that is being talked about here. And it may not be possible to do in the entire system that we have, where millions and millions of cells are present. But imagine a situation where a lot of discoveries happen and the gap between the life science and the technology is closed. And if at all we have a mechanism where, we have a sensing mechanism that identifies the changes, and another mechanism that changes it back to its original sequence, then many of the diseases could be cured. So it may not happen, or it may not be possible to do this in the entire millions and millions of cells that we have. But imagine a situation where this technology works, and if it can be uh, applied to a tissue that has gone wrong, and if we have such technology in a tissue like cancerous cells or group of cancerous cells, where if at all we have a technology, then if there is any change that is happening at the DNA level, if that can be rectified, the cells will stop dividing without any uh, reason. If the cell division can be stopped, then that is the answer for cancer, one of the mechanisms at least. So this is far away from actually the real scenario or real life scenario, but at least it is quite exciting and interesting to see that our scientific community has thought about something. And many of our investigations or many of our discoveries that we have today all started just by some hypothesis like this. Just to give you an example, when in 1950s, when DNA was discovered, nobody had thought that we would end up with biotechnology, we would end up with recombinant DNA technology. Nobody had thought that we would come up with vaccines and many other things using the DNA. So similarly, who knows, a technology like this can help in solving many of the issues that human beings are facing today. But it needs a lot of laboratory validation. This hypothesis is still a hypothesis now, and if it has to materialize, and if we have to have some mechanism working, whatever is mentioned today, then we need to have a lot of laboratory experiments and validate and test on hundreds and millions or whatever number of organisms or cells. Then only we'll be able to say whether this technology works or not. We still see a lot of gap today between the life science and the technology, but if we have some kind of technology where we can bridge the gap that exists today, then the hypothesis or fiction like this can be real. So I thank you, Dr. Sonali, again, and wish her the best of luck. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Sona from Tamil Nadu. I'm immensely happy to thank you all for having graced the occasion with your august presence. I thank the chairpersons Dr. Sudhir Matpati, Dr. Ahalya Barure, Dr. Amandeep Singh, Dr. Sadullah Khan, Dr. Santosh GK, and Dr. Vasudeva SP. Also, I thanking the paper presenters and self-authored story readers, namely Dr. Divya Shikhar, Dr. Sonali Santosh Kadam, Dr. Manasa G, Dr. Mariam Bint Salim, Dr. Meenal R. Kale, Dr. Amandeep Singh, Dr. Karunagaran B, Wendy Van Camp, Dr. Lavanya S., Shivam Sharma, Rima Kumari, Dr. Jayashri, Dr. Madhu Chitarbu, and Dr. Harish Goyale. On this occasion, I thank the distinguished guest speakers, moderators, panelists, registered participants, live members, media persons, and members of the organizing committee. This is the end of today's program. We request you to be with us tomorrow at 8:15 a.m. Thank you, everyone.